You better be listening to Sleazoids or I must break you.
It's the story of Mike, a 24-year-old pinball-playing virgin.
Mick Jagger, I'm not.
Angie, his Italian father.
Pakistan,
Ida, his Jewish mother.
I died the day I married a guy.
Okay, Ida, come on. This is it.
With the fate of the world lying in the balance, his task is simple. Protect a man's life for 24 hours.
I'm putting you in charge of guarding him.
Who is this person?
Mr. Giuseppe Maillard. Guard him without fail, because as far as the radicals are concerned, if they can kill him, they'll control everything.
Thrust into a world of supernatural treachery.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Sleazoids, the podcast where we go down the rabbit hole of 20th century genre fare from the most influential canon classics to the trashiest exploitation films we can get our hands on. I invite you to tag along in helping us create a canon of sleaze. Each week is a double feature, Grindhouse style, where we discuss two films loosely related by subject, genre, actor, filmmaker, or franchise. And at the end of each episode, along with our honorary Sleazoids, which you can become by subscribing on Patreon.
Next week, the USA is intervening countries once again, and we're going to talk about it. Join the sleaze.
I can't believe that's true, but it is true. That's what we're going to be talking about.
Shocking.
We decide all the official ratings and rankings for every film that we cover as well. Patreon subscribers also get on our shout out and 2 bonus episodes every single month, which we are in our 8th year, I believe, of bonus episodes. There's over 200 of them at this point, as well as over 60 of our bonus transmission series where we talk about new release genre films over there. So if you haven't made the jump yet, we recommend doing that. Patreon.com/Sleazoids podcast. Speaking of which, we had a lot of people make the jump this week, so I'm going to rip through these. Apologies. We had Andrew Janke sign up. We had Storn, Denim Gremlin. Awesome name. We had Creston Ketchum sign up for at the annual tier for an entire year of the show. You get a little bit of a monthly discounted rate if you do that. We had Anlin Wang sign up, Ben Gonzalez, Ned Daniels, Moderately Cold, Ryan Thompson, David Lush, Christian Fager. Let's give him the gym. Harry Likes Batman. Brian Blake, who also actually upgraded to an entire year of the show as well. We had Kyle sign up, James, Dan Hill. 2 people make the jump to the $10 tier and joined us for the monthly virtual screenings. We had Gnome Core and Benabu do that. We had Tom D sign up, Alexander Fuchs, Hidi Sarag. You guys got to make this easier on me. Placentipede. That's pretty sick. Awesome. Red Giraffe. Placentipede actually got an entire year of the show as well, but a pretty popular tier right now. Jack did as well. Wow, lots of you. We had Thrill House Cycling sign up. We had Gabrielle Wah sign up and William Maudsley. So thanks so much to all of you folks. We appreciate the support and hope you're enjoying all those bonus episodes.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys.
That's the one plug for the week. The other, as always, is Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you're listening on either one of those platforms, I can see the stats. I can see you right now listening on both those platforms. Give us a good old rating and a review over there. It helps us climb the ranks and find new listeners. And the last plug, as always, is merch. If you would like a Sleazoids dad cap, or you would like a Sleazoids poster shirt designed by a good friend of the show, Brandon Lim of Black Belt Cinema, who put some of our favorite guests in the credits of a movie poster and put some of our favorite movies of the 1980s themed around, of course, Blowout. So if you haven't got that shirt yet, a lot of you have already, but if you haven't, the link is in the description of this episode, as well as over at sleazoidspodcast.com. But that is it for the intro. Welcome back to another week. As always, I am your host, Josh Lewis, and joining me also, as always, is my co-host,
Jamie Miller. Welcome back, everybody.
Welcome. I believe 2 weeks ago would have been the last time you folks over here on the main feed would have heard from us, where we would have had special first-time guest Trey Sover on the show to discuss some videotape J-horror procedurals that were sort of based around supernatural folklore. We talked about Hideo Nakata's ghostly, slow burn, cursed videotape horror drama Ringu from 1998, and we paired that with Koji Shiraishi's paranormal, conspiratorial, found footage mockumentary demon horror film Noroi, The Curse from 2005, which we just absolutely loved.
Yeah, it was awesome to finally watch Noroi. It's just all these different styles kind of through the lens of television was really cool to see. Anytime they're doing some kind of ghost documentary or mockumentary, I love that kind of stuff. It's like kind of similar to Ghost Watch in a way. Some differences, of course, but in that same vein. And Ringu is just awesome. Classic, original, then And then next week, which you're about to talk about, we...
Yeah, I was going to say. And then last week over on the Patreon, kind of a sequel episode to that episode, we decided that we were going to talk about Hollywood studio adaptations of J-horrors rather than, seeing what the how that style and how that trend kind of funneled through the American studio system. So we talked about Gore Verbinski's remake of Ringu called The Ring from 2002, which was somehow a Western remake that's a little bit more visceral and stylish than the original. And longer in terms of runtime as well. So sort of interesting thing, but we enjoyed The Ring a lot. And then we paired it because there was a brand new Silent Hill movie out in theaters. And we were like, you know what, it's time. Let's talk about Christoph Gans. And we talked about his adaptation of Silent Hill from 2006 and his attempt to, very expensively recreate that kind of grotesquely beautiful ambient mood of those pretty iconic horror video games.
Yeah, I mean, it's the first 50 minutes of that Silent Hill movie is pretty much like just showing off the production design and the world and everything. So it is kind of awesome how much time it takes just giving you the atmosphere. The remake is unbelievable. Like of The Ring is unbelievable. Verbinski just directs the hell out of it. I miss a little bit of that negligent mother aspect that they do a little heavier in the original, but it's still good. It's still very good.
Jamie won't be satisfied until every movie is just there's negligent mothers running around getting their kids into...
Those kids are in trouble.
Yeah. But yes, if you haven't heard that episode, that was last week over on the Patreon. We had a good time talking about it. Go back and check it out. But moving on to this week, we are once again joined by a wonderful comedian and illustrator and comic artist known for all kinds of series and maybe a character you've heard called Swan Boy, but also has done writing for the Cartoon Network and illustrations in The New Yorker, does his own podcast called Rude Tales, and has a Netflix animated television show that's coming out this month that you all need to be watching called Strip Law. That guest is our classic and exploitation era animation correspondent, Branson Reese. Branson,
what's up, Sleaze boys? Oh, I came in too hard.
It's like Swan Boy entered the room.
Sorry, I'm getting over a cold. I'm going to power through it, though, and make it impossible to edit around.
That's exactly what Jamie wants to hear.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I'll be talking through all of my... and I'll be saying, like, load-bearing things while I cough that are just impossible to edit around.
You've got me stoked. Without a doubt, that was the most energetic intro we've had in possibly the 8 years of the show. So that was awesome.
Let's go.
Branson, welcome back, man. Before we get into your double feature, tell us, you were telling us about it actually last time that you were on, but it was in the process of you making it. Now it's coming out. Tell our listeners a little bit about your show real quick.
Sure. So this, to call it my show, is very flattering to me. This is Cullen Crawford, a friend of mine. And by extension, I would say friend of the pod. I'll speak for you guys. He's a great guy. He's a genius. It's his show. It's for Netflix. It's about lawyers in Las Vegas. And I'll tell you right now, we did not have any lawyers in that writer's room. And I think, sometimes you'll watch those, like a lawyer reacts to like To Kill a Mockingbird or whatever. Like,
it tells you how accurate it is.
Yeah, I would love to see a lawyer just like disintegrate into a fine red paste trying to watch Strip Law. That's very much the tone of the show. Awesome. I think it's gonna be great. I'm very excited for it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. But it comes out later this month on Netflix. You guys have no excuse. Please go look up this show, especially if you like the types of animation that you will find Branson writing about all over his Letterboxd, because there's literally no person I like to follow more when it comes to like, I guess he logged 10 Looney Tunes today, and he's got...
Oh yeah. Every time
he's got fresh.
I actually recently did a big Looney Tunes run like a couple months ago, and I think you logged every single one that I clicked on. So just hats off to you. You beat me to every single one.
Thank you so much. Every once in a while, you just have a really rough day. You're like, I'm going to take it out on Letterboxd.
Yes.
They're going to know what I think about Porky's Romance, 1937, you know?
7
I
minutes
do feel
at a
like
time,
your
baby.
Letterboxd is like an oral history of of Porky Pig and his, his character arc and his design arc. I feel like I know so much more than I have ever needed to know about Porky
God,
Pig.
they tried everything with that pig. Every way a person can be, Porky Pig was depicted at some point or another. He's a child. He's a bachelor. He's a married man. He does it. He does it all.
The most interesting
Bachelor
man.
Porky Pig's kind of sick, actually.
Yeah.
He's
Really,
gonna
the
roll
only
in a
thing he
pipe.
never does is talk normal.
Okay, he's always had that, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, but Branson, as it goes on the show, we have the guests generally choose their double feature of things that they want to talk about. And last time we had you on, we kind of targeted you a little bit because we wanted to really badly talk about Roger Rabbit, and we were like, you seem like the perfect guy to talk about Roger Rabbit with, but we kind of pushed that on you. We were like, the second episode is going to be Branson just unleashing something on us. So what are you unleashing on us today?
Yeah, that's what you get for opening the door to me. Yeah. So look, I was thinking thematically, right? It's like, okay, I'm promoting the show about Sin City. So maybe 2 movies about how cities are inherently evil.
Yeah.
That was sort of my thinking. We talked Who Framed Roger Rabbit. We also talked Cool World, and I talked a lot of shit on Ralph Bakshi last time, and I felt bad. I was like, you know what? That's not fair. Cool World, judging him just by Cool World, he's done a lot more for animation. Let's do, I think, what generally people consider one of his better, if not his best movies. Let's do 1973's Heavy Traffic. And I thought, why not? Let's pair it with a movie I recently watched that knocked my socks off. I was completely healthy when I watched it, and it made me feel like I was physically ill by the time I finished it. 1987's Wicked City.
Yeah, it ended up kind of fitting into what we were, we've been kind of in a bit of this sort of J-horror space for a bit. So it ended up kind of fitting in there for us.
Oh, there you go. Happy to help.
Yeah, we were definitely, I kind of knew it was like he's pairing it with a Bakshi. So it's got to be there's got to be something in there that's a little bit troubling. And yeah, these are some, these are some pretty nasty movies, but we're a show called Sleazoid. So what are we going to do? We're going to say no. We're going to say we can't talk about tentacle porn on the podcast. No, it's all fair game.
We have covered Midori.
It's true.
Then you guys are good. Yeah, come on.
That was in like the first 2 years of the show too, I feel like. So
yeah, although it's worth noting that Midori still has my favorite all-time review of the show we've ever received, which was discovered Sleazoids, had an amazing time, listened to every episode, got to the Midori episode, took a break. 5 stars.
They went too far. The boys went too far.
Yeah. So Branson is asserting himself into that line of episodes with this double feature. But yeah, we're going to talk about some 1970s American animation. We're going to talk about some 1980s anime. And we're going to get, some directors definitely putting their own fetishes on the screen.
Basically, I thought you guys could stand to lose a few of your less loyal listeners,
yeah.
We shake them off.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm looking at the demographic of like 12% women listeners, and it's about to go to 8.
Yeah. And you'll be thankful for 8.
So that's as much as we need, I think, to describe what we're going to be talking about today. So let's jump into it. Let's kick things off. Let's talk about Ralph Bakshi first here. We're going to go back to the 1970s, and let's talk about Heavy Traffic.
Hard hats, lowlifes, and God.
Hey, this is the voice of God. What's up?
It's animated, but it's not a cartoon. It's funny, but it's not a comedy. It's real. It's unreal. It's heavy. Heavy Traffic.
All right, we are talking Heavy Traffic, the 1973 X-rated exploitation animated drama, actually I guess part live action, part animated, written and directed by Ralph Bakshi, and starring Joseph Kaufman as Michael Corleone. No, not that one, not the one you're thinking about. An aspiring cartoonist and filmmaker who is dealing with all things happening on the Lower East Side, including his immigrant parents and all kinds of crazy criminals on the streets, and is wishing, man, why don't I live in LA instead of New York? New York is crazy. But
and LA would be so much better and healthier, I'm sure.
It would be. It just, I mean, if anything, Bakshi going to LA and making Cool World, his career was in a much better place.
He was right. Yeah.
This is our third time talking, and second time actually, I guess, with Branson talking about the very crude and offensive and psychedelic adult exploitation animator Ralph Bakshi, including his 1977 take on kind of an off-brand sort of Tolkien-esque sort of children's fantasy sword and sorcery film. We talked about Wizards, which is the one that got him the actual animated Lord of the Rings gig just a year later, even though that one had a lot more of his sort of violent, horny, and political polemic edge that he's been kind of known for. Lots of Holocaust and fascism and nuclear anxiety sort of like imagery going on in that one. Kind of closer to like a Dune or Excalibur, I guess, in terms of what Ralph Bakshi is, sort of the surreal, gothic, futuristic post-apocalypse stuff he's doing with like the Nazi orcs and all that craziness.
I think he actually, now that you mention it, he wouldn't be a bad guy to direct Dune. Like a half animated, half live. I'd love to see his take on Dune.
Yeah, he would just put like, there would be a lot more like sort of like cleavage heavy fairies in Dune that they would need to find, And
my main problem with the existing Dune movies is like, where's the cleavage heavy fairies?
Where is it, guys?
Yeah, I mean, David Litchen's Dune doesn't have a dude doing like a Peter Falk impression. So like that's, we could get it going a little bit better there. Yeah, but
famously.
But in terms of sort of like trippy design work and crude expressionism, like I definitely think that's, something, definitely something that he could do. But last time, Branson, when we talked with you, we talked definitely about Cool World, which again, we've highlighted was his sort of weird R-rated horror movie about a comic book artist who wants to fuck his own cartoons that kind of post Roger Rabbit got toned down into like a PG kids movie. And that ended up really hurting or not translating very well what it is that, Bakshi brings to a movie. You need to, as much as you're going to be off-put or uncomfortable with what he's putting on the screen, like if he's not putting himself on the screen, like why are you watching the Ralph Bakshi movie? Like he is his truest form, I think, in something like Heavy Traffic or in Fritz the Cat, obviously, where he was adapting someone who he had such a close connection with in terms of wanting to be, in terms of what he was putting on the screen with Robert Crumb, in terms of the vulgarity and the satire and, how aware Robert Crumb was of like the history of animation and, all the politically and sexually liberated, like post Mad Magazine countercultural shit they were putting into their movies and whatnot as well, or into the drawings and whatnot. So Heavy Traffic is definitely more in that Fritz the Cat realm. The only difference being that like where Fritz the Cat had so many, I don't know, I guess things on its mind in a sort of like broader sense of critique. Like you'll find nothing in here as like crazy as like Mickey Mouse cheering on a US Air Force bomber, lighting up Harlem with napalm as if it were like Vietnam or something. Like that's an image in Fritz the Cat that he steals from Crumb that you're just like, that feels very much very loaded in terms of what it's saying. And here I think you have more of like a personal collage, which is maybe why some people would argue that it's his best movie. He's being very, very open about his own family history and some of his own experiences in this film.
And then while being so personal, still dealing with his kind of like the stereotypes that he uses as to make commentary. So it can still make you very uncomfortable in that sense. But there is with his art in general, such a like, it's very raw and it feels honest and kind of like untamed, like no one is behind him telling him what to do, and that does create a lot of chaos maybe, but it there's something so intriguing about it. And I find him very fascinating, where I don't think I'm always on his wavelength, but I want to see what his next idea is, however uncomfortable it might make me feel.
I think I'm mostly with you. I watched this last night on, I was having trouble finding it. I watched it on the Internet Archive. And I think by the time the movie ended, I was like, I think it's time I face facts. I'm fascinated by Ralph Bakshi, and I don't think I like him.
Yeah, sure.
And I think I sort of mean as a guy when I say that. Like, I think if we were in a room together, I'd be like, man, you got to leave this. You can't talk like that. Like, I hate you, man.
I invited you to this party and you're making this the weirdest thing ever, man.
Yeah, man, I know you grew up in Brooklyn. That doesn't mean you can say it. Like, get out of here.
Exactly. Totally. Oh, man.
That absolutely is the vibe you get off of watching his movies and
even
being
his, like the comedy that it, like when I watch his movies, I know that some of the stuff, a lot of it, I think, is supposed to be humorous, but I find myself almost never laughing. I'm just kind of like shocked by it, and in that sense, sometimes I'll get like a gasp or like a kind of a breath out of me or something. But a lot of it is just me trying to think about like where his brain was when he came up with this scene and this specific dialogue and this
watching
character.
A Ralph Bakshi movie and never laughing, but like just like clutching your pearls. That's how Jamie Jamie watches.
I'm just
them
holding
all.
my shirt collar like, oh my, the whole
he's
time.
like, yeah, that is the third tit that's popped out of a dress. Like, I don't.
Yeah,
well,
one
like,
singular
okay, so
tit.
for example, during the scene when he's getting, I'll say it, like sexually assaulted by the fat woman, and then his mom, who's sexually obsessed with him, runs in and is like, get off of him, he's mine, and then accidentally lands in her ass. So it's this like human centipede of like oral sex. Like, that's presented as a joke. And watching that, I was like, I think if I was in 5th grade, I would be like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, sure. It also, again, feeling like there's like such a personal quality to this one. It feels, I mean, I guess you could say if there's anything here that is like him talking about his own experiences, you could say that he's trying to, add humor to a lot of darkness.
Sure.
But when I don't know, when you're watching it, it still feels like it almost feels too dark for me sometimes to laugh, even if it's coming off of as a little bit Looney Tunes and chaotic in that sense. It feels so much different than other. Maybe I'm trying to think if I've ever seen a lot of cartoons that are to this extent of like content, like this kind of X-rated and
I mean, he was definitely boundary pushing. I mean, like Fritz the Cat was the movie in 1972 that like it was a hit on the grindhouses as like an X-rated adult animated thing. And now, adult animation is, every network has their own show. Mm-hmm. It's incredibly popular, right? So in the 1970s, it was definitely, he was pushing an art form, where he's like, look, this style, I grew up watching all of these animated films and all of these Disney films, and there's references to some of those films that he's talking about. Like there's a guy in this film who absolutely is like, imagine if Popeye like didn't have legs and just got like really, really drunk and horny over a bartender or something like that. Like he tries to update these styles that were always meant for children and going, it's, we could do something else with this. And in that sense, he's an important figure in the animation scene. It's just, they were also married directly to some of his more annoying and off-putting qualities that you are never entirely sure how intentional, or if he is being there's some auto critique in here, or if he is just doing doodling fantasies that you are just being like, okay, I am clearly in the mind of a sick man I would probably not like to speak to, but it's weird and psychedelic enough that I am intrigued by it.
I was acutely aware watching this. I was like, oh yeah, this guy was one of John Kay's like mentors. When he John Crickfalusi, when he was doing like Mighty Mouse, it was like the angel on his shoulder was Bob Clampett and the devil was Ralph Bakshi. And you can really tell watching this, like, oh yeah, that's where that really lazy sort of impulse from John Kay originated, right here in Ralph Bakshi,
Yeah, but the thing I just find interesting about like what Bakshi, I guess, is doing is that the idea was, and he was a little bit self-aggrandizing about it. Maybe not a little bit. He was very self-aggrandizing about it. But like, he believed that what he was doing with animation was, and to quote him, the same thing that, you know, young new Hollywood filmmakers are trying to do with regular movies, that they were, you know, cutting down the budgets, gaining freedom that allowed them to make the, you know, the pictures they wanted to make. Mm-hmm. And he was like, look, animation should be able to do an X-rated comedy. It should be able to do, this is actual quote, how about the rise and fall of the Third Reich in animation? How about World War III in animation? There are no limits. And, you know, so his idea was to deliberately push the limits of what you could, you know, it was taboo breaking. And yeah, you could say that it's very juvenile and very edgy, and definitely there are times where he throws in a sort of sexual or racial obsession, or certain words and certain caricatures and certain things where you're just like, I don't know if Bakshi should be allowed to do this. Yeah. And you will probably think that a lot, but I do think that with Heavy Traffic in particular, there is at least something interesting to be said about the fact that, you know, he is trying to show you his own upbringing from sort of like immigrant parents and a sort of Jewish mother, and trying to incorporate these things in some of his own personal anxieties and trying to escape into the fantasy. And I mean, this film is in fact structured as a live action sort of like bookended film with occasional cuts to what is supposed to be, I guess, Ralph Bakshi like playing, like escaping at the Penny Arcade in New York, and, you know, watching the pinball machine go and daydreaming, having these just absolutely ridiculously insane sort of like, you know, fantasy sequences. Some of these characters are clearly based on real people that at least in the character knows in real life. And I guess you could say it's kind of has that Wizard of Oz component where it's like, you know, the farmer, the farmer becomes the scarecrow. It's like, you know, these various characters become these exaggerated caricatures of themselves. And I mean, that's how you can, I think, argue that he's able to get away with some of the things that he's doing, that, you know, some of the offensive things that he's doing. He is going, I'm in a teenage boy at an arcade's mind as he's drifting and hating his life, you know?
I think has this in his, like, it seems to me in a lot of his movies where it, again, dealing with these stereotypes, it feels like he sees the world in a certain way, and then he also realizes how people talk about, you know, certain groups of people, and I think he just kind of squishes them all together, and then he has like your mix of his personal view, and then this other mix of like just seeing racism and corruption in society and everything, and then he molds it together, and it makes like for instance, at the very end, we do see one of the characters beyond him, and she's still dressed the same way as she is in the cartoon, and it feels more exaggerated than everything else that's around them. And it feels as if he's trying to mix those two worlds constantly. And it makes me feel like he's one of those guys you wouldn't want to talk to at a party, or it'd get a little weird at a certain point. But that collision is very interesting. And then when he does the thing, like he uses real photography mixing in with the cartoons when he is in the fantasy world.
That stuff's fun. I like when the background plates are like pretty cool, like street photography of New York, clearly of like streets and like corners he knows well. And then, crudely animating his own, you know, sort of sketchbook doodles on top of them, and doing all the sort of surrealist sex and violence over top of what are, you know, these actual live action plates. It's kind of cool.
And again, mixing those two things together, right? So it's like, it feels as if he's constantly balancing like this real worldview he might share, and then this exaggerated, ugly worldview that just he maybe sees in the world.
It does. I completely with you. And my favorite stuff in it is the media mix stuff that he would do. So it's like, it's like a real photograph of like the Lower East Side, or like real footage that like cartoon characters are moving on top of. And it does sort of like make the characters in the movie a little bit less real, and then which means it gives them way more leeway to do these way more extreme things, and you don't take it quite as heavily or as seriously as you maybe would if the whole entire thing was like lushly or beautifully animated. And that's to the movie's credit, and he does a good job with that. The other thing I think he does, I know I talk some shit, but something I think he does really well, to the point that I wouldn't be surprised to learn that, like, I think he handles death really, really well for the most part. And he like tends to give it a lot of weight, to the point that I wouldn't be surprised to, I don't know a ton about Bakshi, but I wouldn't be surprised to learn that he lost someone really close to him early, because it's in Fritz the Cat, it's in Wizards, it happens in this, where like somebody will die and it's given like an enormous amount of weight out of nowhere. Whereas 30 seconds earlier, a bunch of guys were just stabbing each other in the head and laughing and like not dying.
Yeah.
You know,
Definitely.
it's like, suddenly, I think there's something like really like poetically true about that, of like, yeah, we're all being violent to each other. And then suddenly you don't even understand why, but the rules have changed and somebody's actually died. And it like feels extremely heavy and really unpleasant. I'm thinking about the gunshot to the head at the very end.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh my God.
No, it's so
brutal.
violent. Excuse me. It's so
He
violent
definitely
and detailed.
likes to exist in this world that's like definitely really, really exaggerated to the point where you don't know how you're supposed to absorb it. But then he'll throw in like the real world experience sometimes infects this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's almost like when you're playing like a video game and it's like, all right, the goal is you have to kill all these goblins in this room. And then you find like a note after you've killed them. It's like, do you know those goblins had a family, right?
yeah.
Right? It's like, well, hold on, that's not fair. That's
It's
not
like,
the
damn it, I'm
rules.
trying to have a good time here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it does feel there's something to be said too. Like he has such crude animation a lot of the time, which I do like. But sometimes it almost feels like it might be lacking in detail. And when it does get to that point where his fantasy is over and he gets shot in the head, it's like one of the most detailed moments in the entire movie when it comes to the animation. Like his whole head splits apart, and you know, like there's like you see the bullet go through and explode and everything. Like it's it feels I don't know, for him to put that kind of detail in that moment where it's a character that represents seemingly himself in some way feels just I don't know, it's like punishment. His character does end up doing some pretty terrible things throughout this, which, you know, leads you to believe it's not entirely autobiographical, but it definitely has this thing where it's
maybe
who knows? Yeah. Who knows with Bakshi? But
he definitely pushes a naked woman off of a roof at one point and then says, bitch had it coming.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, exactly. So I hope that's not autobiographical.
Definitely not.
Yeah. And then there is his sense of humor is like, there's a recurring gag where her corpse just like hangs on a clothesline, like above the city street. And like 3 or 4 different times a character just like walks by it, doesn't notice that there's just like a corpse of a woman like hanging above them. And like, these are some of the more sort of like dark and sort of off-putting details that make their way in, as well as obviously some of the assumptions he makes in terms of racial caricature and some of the language he feels comfortable using, which is maybe pretty well known when it comes to Bakshi. But from everything that I like read about this was like a huge passion project for him. Like Fritz the Cat was something he made because he felt like he could, like there was a sort of, you know, he was going to push boundaries and it was something he was interested in making, but there was for him, like it was his version of adapting IP and like doing something commercial. And Heavy Traffic, the success of that was like how I'm going to get Heavy Traffic out there, because he was like, there's no way anyone would be ever interested in putting this into theaters. Like it's literally about a Jewish underground cartoonist in New York. All of these things are very similar to my own life. Why would anyone care about this experience, even though it is, you know, clearly unique, and it definitely is, you know, doing with this sort of assimilation process of his parents. I mean, you could actually argue this is maybe closer to like Ralph Bakshi's like Portnoy's Complaint, which would have been pretty new
absolutely,
at the time, I guess. That's like, I mean, the Jewish mother stuff especially, because I was like, my God, dude, why would you? If I was his mother, I'd be fucking horrified, which is maybe also the point.
Oh, if I had walked by him on the street, I'd be horrified by this. Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, every single time the parents interact, it turns into the most like violent, aggressive I mean, it still kind of has like that cartoonish quality to it, but the implications of violence, and I mean the outright violence, obviously, is crazy. Like it's
a caricature of like a controlling Jewish mother who is being cheated on by his father, Angelo or Angie, who is this kind of pathetically sleazy, Italian, sort of like mafia underling, who, you know, drives around town collecting free drinks based on his like respected reputation reputation, but mostly just uses it as a tool to like pick up women. And also, he doesn't actually really have much of a reputation. Every time he tries to do something in the movie that's like work related, everyone just goes, dude, you fucking suck and nobody likes you. And no one wants you to like work for us anymore. So then he goes home, he's resentful at home, and he literally just gets into like violent brawls with Ida, the mother, where they do frequently just try to murder each other, whether it's like throwing, butcher knives in each other's direction, nearly hitting each other's genitals, or the bit where she knocks him unconscious and literally like stuffs him into the oven and just like turns it on and goes, I died the day I married a goy.
Yeah.
Well, by the way, there were 1,000 lit candles in the apartment when she did that. She was about to take everyone out with her. Thank God he got out of there.
And then like the kind of difference that they view the world, where she says something like Catholics don't get divorced, so they're kind of like in this, I guess, theological hold where they can't. I assume the Italian father figures it's a sin to get divorced, so we're just going to try to kill each other until one of us inevitably does one day, I guess, until the bitter end. There's just
and Michael just listens to these fights and doodles and draws them as like a bickering, like giant boob and giant penis.
Yeah, and so when you see that image where he's just like seeing basic almost homicide behind him, and he's writing cartoons, and it's supposed to represent him in some way, it does feel as if it's like this is where all of this, rage and angst and even dabbling in like hatred and stereotypes probably comes from. It's like his way of dealing with whatever he dealt with. Not to say if it's wrong or right.
It tells you that in the movie that all of this is coming from is that this is like a juvenile teenager's form of escapism at looking at, sort of the grubby life that they feel they're living, and their attempt to want to leave it behind in some capacity. And I mean, a lot of this movie just does become him, the sort of animated version of him wandering these different sort of episodic encounters, whether it's like a harmonica playing sort of apartment rooftop pal Mo, who gets into the little there's the bit where they like let the bird go and they yell at the bird because they set it free and it shits on them. Or
after the whole metaphor of like, the pigeon not being free until it's uncaged and it's being trained to come back, so there's something like it's being conditioned. And I do like that thought of him being like he's freeing that thing and then it shits.
The look of the horny photographer one where he talks to his buddy and it's a bunch of like live action swimsuit models with like clown makeup, but it's been filmed in this like surreal like reverse negative footage kind of way. That's honestly just kind of really creepy and off-putting.
Yeah, totally.
That photographer really reminded me of the Hawaiian Punch guy. He looked just like how about a nice Hawaiian Punch? Like the same like dimensions, like probably same era of animation too.
Did the Hawaiian Punch guy jump into the biggest boobs I've ever seen in my entire life? Like it's
early on they had to stop airing those, but people complained for some reason.
Wasn't selling as much punch as they thought.
Yeah, the stuff with the parents fighting, I was like, there's almost something here to me. That was like where I sort of like had a bone to pick with the movie, because his little like flight of fancy, and it did this a few times where like Michael's imagination, we would like enter an even more animated space than the already animated space we were in. And the movie would basically turn into its own thumbnails or its own storyboards. And it was real. It would be really rough, these really black and white drawings. And whenever that happened, I was like, this is dynamite. This is electric. This is where Bakshi really shines as an animator.
I think you're right that like that section too, where he like confronts the like mafia don asking him to like kill his son for him, and it gets like really, really surreal from there.
You can tell he's really interested in that, and that's like, and also crucially, that part of it's more forgiving for him cutting animation corners, which I can't help but notice he's doing constantly in this movie. Nobody's looking at each other. There's no point of people are just like walking, like they're just ghosts through the space. Like it has an effect on you when you watch it, and it's like that effect can be used intentionally, and I think sometimes it's used intentionally here, but just as often it's like, for example, when his parents are fighting, I'm like, God, a little bit of blocking or a little bit of deliberation and the timing would have gone a long way here. Ideally, this should feel like Tom and Jerry. You know, this should feel like Tom and Jerry cranked up to 11, and that's what's disturbing about it. But when you can't even nail the basics of, you know, like the A, B's, and C's of like, well, how do we block this? How do we, you know...
Yeah, like what is the geography of this space? Like, where would the camera be to follow this movement or action? Like, it's not something he cares about at all.
And so it just has the effect of, they're just punching each other. Yeah, that's awful that they're doing that. And it feels less like we're using these old animation tropes to play with these ideas, and more just like, just like we're cursorily nodding to Tom and Jerry, you know, rather than like actually using them to say something. It just felt, it just felt a little lazy to me.
Yeah, no, I can get that. One of the times I think it does work. You were just talking about the moment where the father goes to the Godfather to ask to kill his son, and they turn it into almost
with
like
the Godfather music while he's just ripping a fucking plate of spaghetti.
In fact, I like too that he doesn't talk at all. He's just kind of like not responding to him whatsoever, just eating the spaghetti. It's just like, I don't even need to respond to you. I have this beautiful Italian dish right here. But I do like the Looney Tunes aspect of the violence that comes into play, where all the guns go to his head and then he's like shot in the head and he looks kind of like Swiss cheese, but there's still that X-rated factor where the blood pours out and everything, and there's still that kind of detail. So again, just mixing those worlds, and I like the way that scene was directed, and mixing it with the I mean, the whole movie does this, but the real photography of the factory or whatever that they're in, mixing with the cartoon feels just, I don't know. There's a real grittiness to it that I really like. It's kind of filthy.
There's always something rough about his movies, and sometimes I think that can absolutely just be laziness, or it could be budgetary limitation or whatever it is. But then, you know, sometimes the roughness is also something that's working about the movie. But that's always the Bakshi thing, is you really don't know. Sometimes you are just like, okay, does this sequence not as ambitious as it should be because he just doesn't want to do it, or because he's just doodling and he's like, and that's meant to be what's charming about it, and that becomes an issue when, you know, obviously some of the things he's putting on screen aren't charming and they are just gross. But then there are times where you're just like, well, that is weird and unique, and that is in a, you know, an endearing way.
Who would do it? But you know, you gotta. I was picking this hoping it would be a little Bakshi redeemed for me. You know, where it's like I talked shit on Cool World, but here's Heavy Traffic.
You gotta like it more than Cool World. I feel
I do. I liked it quite a bit more than Cool World, and I will say this for it. You gotta respect an artist who, you were talking about it earlier, that his one for them was Fritz the Cat.
Yes,
like that's an hilarious, uncompromising artist, whether or not I like the movie, and I generally was a thumbs down on it. You gotta respect a guy who's like, I'm not gonna bother to make this something that anyone but makes sense to anyone, but this is like a tone poem more than it is like a movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was impressed by that quality of this, that, like, you know, Fritz the Cat has, you know, it's very scattershot. It goes through a lot of different things like very quickly, and the world just completely changes. And yeah, I mean, you could argue that this has that sense of I don't know what you would call it like sort of a schizophrenic quality to it at times, but it does feel targeted to like images he's been thinking about for a while, and things that do eventually sort of connect back into each other. Like this one had characters he sets up, and characters overlap and come back, and they have, you know, it sounds very, very basic, but it was just like the fact that there was like a through line for some of these characters and the relationships they had with other ones, and who hurt who decides that, you know, like the fact that the guy at the bar really is into the black woman bartender Carol, who he also likes, and the fact that ends up running through the entire film is that, you know, when his dad can't get the mafia to kill him, he's just like, well, I'll kill your son because he stole my girlfriend. Dude.
Yeah.
And
dude,
you just have like this,
no worries.
Yeah, you just have like this legless Popeye bar bouncer just being like, I will kill this, you know, this little Jewish Italian boy because he's just too swagged out. He just is able to steal. He's Mr. Steal your girl, and he's not happy about that.
Well, like the moment with his mom at that party at the end where she's just like looking at old family photos all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's great.
I really liked that. And she sees the photo of herself. And I assume that was that an actual photo of Bakshi's
I'm assuming
mom?
that's just a photo of his mom.
It seemed to be. And then she gets emotional. And I could feel, and it, you know, I was like, God, it would have gone a long way if I knew a little bit more about her other than she's just like a Tex Avery Wolf of a woman, you know, like,
Yeah.
but okay. But still, I could still feel it as a moment. It did resonate. And I, especially knowing the inevitable behind the scenes with him and his mom there, I was like, oh, that's undoubtedly a powerful moment, whether I fully comprehend it or not.
Yeah, it feels like every once in a while he'll get on the cusp of like nuance within his characters here and there. And those moments really do shine because I think there's such a contrast to everything else that you see. But I really like the scene where he's watching the movie in the theater all by himself, and at first
that feels like just a memory of his. Like he went to go see Victor Fleming's Red Dust at like a movie palace and just felt like completely alone at the movies.
And what I like too is that like at first when they show it just shows him in the seats, and the seats look really gross, like they have stains on them and stuff, and I thought it was just going to turn into like him at a porn theater or something like that, or just like a more rundown theater. And it's interesting because the theater itself is huge because it does this big zoom out eventually where he's like the only one on the balcony in a center seat. And it's just this massive, expensive, rich looking theater, but it's like run down and it doesn't seem to be used anymore. And he's the only one in it. It feels kind of like a ghost town or something. And it's, I don't know. I just thought that felt very personal. And also his reaction to the movie itself. I've never seen the movie. Do you guys know which one it is? I see there's 3 listed that they use here.
I believe it was Victor Fleming's Red Dust, the 30s movie.
Because he seems to be having a reaction to the lead man in that movie being kind of like physically abusive. And eventually he's like, he has this one funny part where he's like, I'm not a one woman man. And then he gets shot or something like that.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Michael even responds like he's like satisfied with that moment, which I found interesting because, you know, Michael has a bunch of problems as a character, but one thing he seems to be is still sensitive to like Carol specifically. So I couldn't tell if maybe that was a moment where he was like, yeah, that guy got his comeuppance or something. It's not very obvious in the scene, but there's moments there that you can kind of see.
But it's funny that you're thinking about a Ralph Bakshi movie in those terms, because then the next scene will just be like, and then there was like a cross-dressing hooker who gets beaten up by Bongo the construction worker and really likes it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You're like, well, what's the commentary here? Yeah.
You know, that character, obviously, that's a rough watch. I'm not breaking new ground here. That's an unpleasant watch. Listeners, if you haven't seen the movie, it's worse than whatever you're imagining. At the same time, I would say that was the character I liked the most and was the closest to funny. And I was like, okay, this actually does sort of like exist in the Bugs Bunny cross-dress, you know, where it's this character is, even while getting brutalized, you know, she's joking, you know, she's still like,
she's like, this is sublime, like, keep going.
And it's like, well, obviously that's not Bakshi's to riff on, but you know, it's this whole can of worms of if you really want to open that with Ralph Bakshi, I think you have to kill him. You know what I mean? I think like the end result of that is you got to find him, hunt him down, and end his life. Like, so like, okay, probably that's not his to riff on in the first place, but it's like, I definitely get the sense that he knew or was friends with cross-dressers or trans people and liked them and thought they were cool. You know, I think that
it's very clear that like the construction worker, whoever that character was, is like bigoted and homophobic and all of that. It's just how far Bakshi tends to go with every character. So you kind of get into that like, well, I'm going to offend literally everybody kind of thing.
Yeah, you know, anytime you hear someone who's like, oh, I'm an equal opportunity offender, It's like, obviously,
it's usually
like,
bullshit. Yeah,
usually it's just like, I'm a Republican. But
got it.
Bakshi needs it.
Yeah, like maybe that's why I'm kind of sitting here sometimes just going like, I just find you intriguing, even if I don't love every single thing that you do. You know?
Yeah, he really is good to his word.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, and that's just it. Is I feel like there's enough here that is very clearly autobiographical, informed by his real surroundings and environment and his actual feelings about it, and they are translating in this very crude and expressive fashion through the animation. And so it was why I did take to this, even though there were moments where, yeah, I kind of agree with Jamie. I don't know that I like actually laughed watching this movie very much. I just really did like feel like but there were moments where I did feel it, and that is more than I can say for, I think, some of the other Bakshis that I've seen. Because something like Wizards, I was actually more in awe of like some of the actual design work, and I kind of liked. And with Fritz the Cat, I was actually kind of impressed with some of the righteous political anger of some of it. That it was obviously some of which was Robert Crumb's, and he was just translating. But like those are qualities I was not as impressed with here. But I was impressed with just like the depth of like how personally felt some of this imagery is to him, even if he is haphazardly vomiting it on the screen in like our general direction, and you're kind of just being like, yeah, good luck parsing this, this is just this is a manic man's sketch diaries just being projected at you. Like
the one part where it's like the sketch within a sketch, and he's doing very crude caricatures of black people, and they're doing these
the Maybelline part, right?
Yes, yeah, and they're doing these. And this is the thing about the scene is like when you're watching it, you're like, holy shit, man, this is a lot of imagery that you're throwing at me right now.
Yeah.
But the transitions themselves of like how the bodies morph and how it goes from like the sex into the car metaphor and the symbolism and all that stuff, I thought that was awesome, and I was like really impressed by all of that. It was just that it's also surrounded by a very crude caricature of black people, so you're like, you're just in that mixed headspace with him.
Yeah, that part especially, I was like, God, it's a shame that this is sort of the best part of the movie.
Right.
I feel, I don't mean this glibly, I feel the same way watching like Coal Black and The Seven Dwarves. Like, it's like, God, it's a shame. It is a shame how well done this is, because look what it's in service of. Like, that sucks. But the actual animation was so alive during that part, and he was having so much fun, and like his favorite thing was happening, which was a single boob was popping out and then getting sucked on. Like, he loves that more than anything. And he was
it's like 4 different times in the movie.
Oh my God. I don't think his mom ever had them both in at the same time.
He was like, ladies in the 1970s just aren't wearing dresses that fit properly. That was his main hang up.
The way the women would put their boob back into their dress. And that was also, I was like, come on,
filmmaker.
It's like, I know you can do better, because then the way they'd put it back in, it would be like, that was gorgeous. That was on the ones. That was so well observed. I know you've seen 3,000 people put a boob back into a slip. Like, I know, like, and then I see a guy walking down the street, and it's like, have you ever seen a man walk before? Like, how it's all in service of that and not this?
And again, I'm just remembering another mixed bag moment where they have the moment where I think his mother puts on that like very slender dress that she used to wear, and she has kind of like the tip pop out and everything. But then she has a dialogue part where she says something like, your father used to love me in this dress. And it's just one moment, but again, because of all the chaos and the violence and aggression that you see throughout it, those little parts where she becomes more sensitive or more open about her past, just briefly, really does kind of hit you. I think, at least it did for me. Because again, it's so rare. It feels like.
Well, yeah, because for every moment like that, it'll be the one that Branson already referenced, but the one where Michael is just like orally raped by an overweight like Italian prostitute or something like that. You're just like, and then his mother runs in the room, and you're just like, okay, I hope this didn't happen to you, man.
Exactly. Yeah, it sounds awful. And if it did, and this is how you have to like process it.
Work through it.
I guess that's fine, but it really feels like none of my business. You know, it really, as an audience, like I don't know, you could just draw it. And then,
yeah, I guess. I mean, who knows? I guess maybe his dad brought a prostitute home and was like, "Time to make you a man today, son," or something. Because I
got to read a biography if this guy has one. Because it's like this movie specifically is making me question things more than because the other ones had like. Well, I guess, with Fritz the Cat, it has a little bit of it's more grounded, but it's also animals. So again, this feels like within the city, the real photography mixed with the cartoons and all his ideas.
And you have a whole nother creative too in Crumb who actually like drew a lot of that stuff in the first place that he's adapting, right? So
yeah, very true.
That's this is definitely the one where it's pure. Like if you are a Bakshi person, this is pure unabashed. Bakshi. Like that is why for a lot of people this is the best one, and it's at the very least it's the most one, regardless of how you feel about him. And it does feel kind of summarized in that moment where Michael goes to try to sell his underground comic strip to an old executive on his deathbed who's very excited to greenlight something, only to actually show him his pitch, which is this very dark post-apocalyptic like comic strip about like war and a world that like World War III created like piles of garbage that people hump and worship, and there's like this twisted Jesus story where Jesus kills his own dad for screwing his mom because God came down and all this kind of stuff, and literally he kills the executive with this old dude on his like cartoonishly on his deathbed, and he just like sees all this cynicism and ugliness and literally just goes, I should just leave this earth.
It's done. Yeah. Why do I want to be here anymore?
I'm not going to be greenlighting this, and so you can feel some of like Bakshi's sort of creative frustrations about the things that he wants to make, but also an acknowledgement that like he doesn't want to make something that is commercially friendly. He's incredibly lucky Fritz the Cat made any sort of money that it did, as just you need to see the crazy X-rated cartoon.
You'll never believe who this cat will fuck.
Yeah. It's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Smokes weed, goes to college. It's crazy.
Goes to college.
It does kind of turn into that like desperate.
Turns into a liberal hippie.
It does kind of turn into that desperate. I guess it's like artist, and in general, I get because the Carol's a bartender, so it's just desperation economically in general. Because eventually they turn to the streets where they have plans of like getting Johns and then killing them for their money and all of that. It really does turn pretty dark in that sense. Not just like his commentary on society and everything, but just what he goes through as a character as well. It gets pretty dark.
Yeah, they briefly try making money at like a Busby Berkeley club, like strip club or something. I was trying to figure out what that was all about. Yeah, I was like, okay,
really, what that felt like it was about to me was that background was so cool, and he wanted to put it in the movie. Right, that felt like that was the impetus for that. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. By the way,
I mean, well, it could have been the same thing as the movie too, because I'm pretty sure it was Gangs All Here. Amazing movie, but yeah, it might have just been like a movie he saw in theaters at the time, and he was just like, I don't know, I'll throw that in there, I guess.
Yeah,
and like that's totally cool. By the way, I didn't want to say, you were talking about Bakshi people. If there are any Bakshi people listening to this who want to murder me for picking this and then just like trashing him the whole time. First of all, I get it. You're not wrong. Second of all, I do want to caveat, as much I stand by everything I've said about Ralph Bakshi. I do wish he made and was allowed to make like 8 or 9 more movies like this in his, it's good that this exists. We should have more stuff like this. Whether or not I like it is immaterial.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. This is the type of art that I don't like just cling to and wholeheartedly love, but I just see so many parts of it that I do really appreciate and respect. And even there's things that I don't know if the word love would be the word, but it's just like I have immense respect for what he's doing as an artist. Like him just kind of leaving it all on the table and just being like, these are thoughts I had, and they're unfiltered. They're they're completely raw. You're gonna have to you're gonna see him in a specific way that our other artists wouldn't even dare to expose themselves as, you know. So
there's a lot of people who would have these thoughts and would be so ashamed they would kill themselves.
And then there's
people who would have these thoughts, and I'm like, I'm going to draw this and put it on a screen, and everyone's going to watch it and discuss it and figure out what the fuck is happening. And Bakshi is the latter of those two archetypes. And we're talking about it for a reason. You know, I do think that there is like a lot to unpack. This is definitely the Bakshi where I have left it and I have felt the most like the shock factor elements were worth it. That it was a moment, like that there was a lot being personally, sort of exercised out of his mind and his body in this film. And I felt I parsed through them in a kind of heartfelt way, which is something I wouldn't necessarily say about some of the other Bakshis that I have experienced, where I've just kind of rolled my eyes at some of the imagery. And here, even when he's going pretty extreme with it, I don't know. I feel like it's coming from somewhere that, you know, a sense of care to it, I guess, even if he's lazily rendering that or doesn't have the ability to do it in the way that he might if he had, you know, a Disney animation studio helping him render this. But, you know, that's the whole point, is he's cutting budgets to push the freedom of personal expression using this form. And, you know, you can't argue that he's not an important figure in doing that, even if you don't necessarily find it the most pleasant experience. It's not what you decide you're going to throw on when you're hanging out with the family.
No, pleasant is definitely not the word for Bakshi's art, 100%.
And I don't think he'd want it to be. I think if he were like, this was a pleasant movie, he'd be like, rats. Like, but
definitely.
I thought this was definitely his most personal, for sure. His next movie that follows this, that you're not going to trick me into saying the name of, the Song of the South blaxploitation riff. That one, I think, definitely takes some bigger risks, and as a result, has some like bigger rewards. And in a lot of ways, I sort of like admire that one a little bit more than this. But
that's the one that feels like he's actually wrestling with the history of that problematic imagery, and he is like, and he's actually intellectually thinking it through, you know. And
it's also the one where it's like, God, if you had just if you had sincerely like tweaked it and made it a little bit more Song of the South, you would have gotten a lot further with it. But I'll take what I can get with it. And this is one, though, that I did walk away from this feeling like I understood him much more than I ever have. He's always been such a like bizarre enigma to me, you know. And I was having the damnedest time streaming this yesterday, and I found a bunch of YouTube interviews, all of which I watched with him. And they're all over the place. Some of them, he's like completely belligerent. It's just like, I hate sex. I've always hated sex. Some of them, he's like completely like freshly showered. And he's like, the thing I love about Japanese animation is their storytelling instincts are totally different from ours. You never know what you're going to get. Like, he's all over the place. And so like watching that, I was like, okay, I feel like I got a home base now.
Did you watch the one where he screams that he's as erotic as Adolf Hitler?
Oh, yes. Yeah. You know what?
Dude, this guy's fucking wild, man.
I get where he's coming from. He's certainly obsessed with sex, but it's like, I don't know. I'm sorry. If you're jacking off to Heavy Traffic, you're a broken person. I don't know what to tell you.
Definitely. But God bless, Godspeed.
I'm broken. It's okay.
Well, because I mean, you'd have to be like, well, some of these drawings could only come from the mind of just like a completely unhinged, horny man. But at the same time, you could believe that, like, this is like, he's not actually making something pornographic or fetishistic or something that actually he finds appealing. He's just like trying to be, a little asshole.
That is kind of like, in a way, that does feel kind of like the difference between how they use the sexual exploitation within this and then with compared to the next movie we'll be talking about. Like, it does feel as if he, a lot of the time when he presents all this stuff, still feels it's ugly. It's just he's still presenting it to you and going like, look at it up close, So yeah, I think there's kind of a difference in that regard of how he uses it. Maybe not every single time, but I think most of the time. One thing
what I like about that, because I think you're right, but what I like about that too is that this is meant to be like his fantasy movie. This is like
it's pretty dark.
The guy escapes reality, and it becomes this this twisted Wizard of Ozzy version of all of these different people and environments he's familiar with. But yeah, it's not super pretty and fun and beautiful. It is still just like consistently off-putting and upsetting at times, even when he's trying to present some form of this guy is escaping into a fantasy, and you're like, damn, your fantasy is still really fucked up, dude. You gotta get out of New York.
What I find interesting too is when he breaks out of the fantasy and he like smashes the pinball machine and leaves the arcade, they still he's not necessarily taking away from some of the more, I don't know if cartoonish would necessarily be the word, but comedic aspects of the world. Because when he leaves the arcade, the one guy playing like guns shooter with a fake cowboy arcade game actually like fakes that he's dead and just like hangs there as if he's actually dead. And then
I love the dude taking nudes in the photo booth too.
Yeah, exactly. The next thing where it's like in the background you see the guy taking naked photos. So he's still kind of living in an exaggerated world. I'm sure, I mean, it's New York City. I'm sure those are things you could see there. But I just mean it's all happening at once still. And it feels as if it's like he can't really escape that chaos entirely, even when he breaks out of his fantasy. And that might be what he's, it might be why the fantasy is so over the top too, because this is what he sees in his real life, quote unquote.
So. Yeah, and he takes Carol to go enjoy the music of the busker, who sings them the song that turns them into that like manic sort of like sketch montage, sort of like earlier in the film as well. So everything kind of loops back around.
I said in my review that I didn't laugh once during this movie, and I stand by that with one exception. Actually, I forgot I did laugh when he comes back to the pinball, like the real world, when he's in the arcade. He like trashes the pinball machine, knocks it over and like kicks it, and then the owner of the store looks at him like, yeah, buddy. Like, that's a very funny reaction to me. That's the owner.
He doesn't like get angry.
Hey, those ain't free, you gotta pay for that. Like, he looks at him like, yeah, that machine really got the best of you, didn't it? Like, that's not what would happen. That was but that's one laugh that's like almost at the exact end of the movie. It's still, too little too late.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, like, I feel as if there were moments that I definitely probably chuckled, maybe a giggle, Sure. But there was a lot of it was, again, that kind of just like contemplating what I was watching a lot of the time, and not in a way that I disliked, just in a way that I felt still kind of confused rather than humorous, I guess. But I did that gag where the cowboy's faking the death and the guy's taking pictures of his penis in the photo booth did make me laugh. I remember thinking that was funny. So there's definitely moments in here. I just think as if it's a comedy, that is where I get a little like, I don't know.
It really is more of just like a sad drama.
Yeah,
I
it
think.
feels sadder than that.
And I think even though he's using these sort of images you are familiar with, like slapstick comedy and cartoon comedy and things like this, he's like, I'm using that form to tell a different kind of story, which would just be like a guy who's depressed in New York thinking about his Portnoy ass life.
Yeah, it's like he's trying to cover, like, he doesn't want you to look away from all the ugliness, but he just wants to slightly cover it up with some cartoonish violence, even though he doesn't cover it up enough for you to have fun with it. You're just kind of like, this still feels uncomfortable and sad.
Yeah, even at the end of your fantasy, Michael's brains are fucking blown out in slow motion in front of his mom and Carol. His head exploding into this psychedelic montage of like the Godfather becomes death, and his dad ends up sort of like shitting out the Popeye guy Shorty, and then fucking him in the ass as they mutate. And I was just like, this is okay. Sure.
Yeah. You're right.
Why not, Ralph?
The movie is not and doesn't promise to be a comedy. So me saying I didn't laugh is like not really effective criticism like that. And
I think it's just when you're watching it, it does feel as if because of the Looney Tunes nature of it, it's almost like your brain thinks of it as that. Like, I should be laughing or something.
Yeah,
like
it's
that.
like buddy, if you're going to make me think about Popeye and then not laugh, that's like edging. You can't do that to me. I'm so used to seeing Popeye and laughing and laughing.
And now I'm just concerned.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Yeah. But
it's nice though, watching them do the slow-mo dance. And I do really like just the simplicity of it zooming out, and you can see them dancing like for miles, it seems. Like they just go throughout that whole park. And that was a kind of heartwarming shot, I guess, especially compared to everything else that we've seen.
And I love that Scarborough Fair, that like jazzy, what was that? I forget who it was, but that version of it, I was like, oh, this is great. I liked it. I liked that. I loved all the real New York stuff. And like, oh God, I've been right there. Yeah. 1973 was a fucking awful time to live in New York City.
Yeah.
And hey, he managed to turn this into being able to adapt Lord of the Rings. So,
that's crazy.
What is with that? It's like him and Peter Jackson. It's like the more objectionable the art you make, the more they're going to give you Lord of the Rings.
That's a good comparison. Yeah. Peter Jackson was just doing blood, gore, craziness before that. So
Yeah. But if we are pivoting towards the reductive rating round on Heavy Traffic, this ended up still being despite having reservations and despite not being not being a laugh a minute, this was a 3 for me. I had a decent time with it, and I do think it's what Branson pointed out earlier, but like it does feel like the key to unlocking Bakshi. I feel like it made me kind of want to go through his other stuff with some of this in mind, and like knowing that this is definitely an exaggerated version of his family history, but it is his family history and some of his own personal hang-ups, and the Ralph Bakshi origin story in a way is being depicted here. And so it was something that had me thinking about what he's put into his other work. And I do look at this idea of him being like really badly wanting to take this form that he's in love with, that he's loved since he was a kid, and still clearly makes him feel childlike and juvenile in a way, but trying to funnel it through some of the more complicated things that he's feeling about, his childhood as an adult. And I think that that's an interesting way of approaching it. I do think that there are still times where his edgy and annoying and off-putting qualities overwhelm some of the things he might actually be trying to say, or some of the things he might actually be feeling. And even if you're watching it and you could be like, yeah, this guy is, hopefully not sexist and racist in the ways that some of his characters in some of his movies can feel like they are. Sometimes he walks that line so dangerously, you're not exactly sure what to make of it. But I do appreciate that Bakshi was like, I am going to push what this form is capable of doing and pave the way for other people like me to tell different kinds of stories using this medium. And I do think that, Fritz the Cat and Heavy Traffic are hugely important in terms of pushing, what other animators would be able to do after them, even if I don't necessarily find them the most enjoyable and pleasant watches myself. And I don't know how soon I'm going to be throwing on another Bakshi, but there's definitely a personal family history collage quality to this, and seeing him autobiographically document his upbringing and his desire to escape some of these socioeconomic realities in this just very expressive sketchbook doodling fantasy way was, something really interesting. And I did appreciate that, he doesn't go, I can't ignore all of these things that I actually saw around me and the people I knew and the environments I was in. And some of that ugliness is going to make its way even into the surreal fantasy. And yeah, it's meant to upset you and provoke you, and sometimes you're just not sure whether that's always productive or intentional. He's just sometimes throwing shit at you, but I'm always, again, nonetheless, I think, impressed when I throw a Bakshi movie on. I'm like, this is absolutely one of the freest an artist has probably ever been allowed to be, and in a gross and rough and mostly entertaining way.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think it's a solid 3 for me as well. I do feel like the more I get to know him, or at least the more I feel like I get to know him through his art, however he lets me do that, it speaks to me a little more. It doesn't seem like if you just watch his stuff without even getting any type of knowledge about how he is, or watching a few of his movies, I just don't think it speaks for itself very clearly. Which again is still interesting. I do think that he's been an artist that I've mostly just kind of liked his stuff and thought it was all right, but I always have this feeling of wanting to dig in a little deeper and find out if there's anything else I can uncover, or maybe even in that deep dive find something in these movies I've already seen that I like more, just understanding him a little bit better. So he's very interesting to me. I guess I haven't like fallen in love with anything yet. But yeah, like the mix of kind of like the cartoon logic with the real life violence is very interesting, although very unsettling and uncomfortable. And mixing the real photography with the cartoons, I think helps to add to that kind of grittiness and almost lived in experience, however exaggerated it is through the cartoons. But it keeps you locked into that perspective. And there are some really great sequences here, like the psychedelic death sequence, and however, problematic it is with what it's depicting, I do think that the Maybelline sequence is incredibly well animated, and the transitions between like the body and the car stuff is awesome. So yeah, there's a lot of really awesome stuff in this. It also confuses me, I guess. So it's going to remain at the 3 for now, but I'm gonna watch more of Bakshi because he's very fascinating.
Yeah, for you, Branson.
I'm gonna stick to my guns. I'm gonna give it a solid 2, but I'm gonna stick to a 2 for this. Look, Bakshi's done a lot for animation, specifically adult animation. He's done a lot for sickos and freaks, which are 2 camps that I live in, and I make my bones making a career inside of. Like, I respect what he's done and what he's made possible in the world of art. And like when you look at the influence he's had and where my career is allowed to exist, it's so much of it is downstream from him. So he gets 2 entire stars, and on top of that, I'll say that like.
I give you a little bit of respect, old man.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting something. There's plenty that I do admire about him as an artist, and like how uncompromising he is, and how I get the sense that every time he got money from somebody, he burned that bridge and had to get it from somewhere else the next time. Like, yeah. I love that. He's like the Jess Franco of animation. Like, that's cool. Like but then when I sit down to watch his movie, and this is like the 5th or 6th Bakshi I've seen, and this was the one where I was finally like, okay, I think we're just not friends. I think we're just like, he's not one of my guys cinematically, and that's...
Do you have a favorite one, just out of curiosity? Like, what is the best one for you?
It's the one that I'm not going to say the name of, which is like, I'm so cowardly, but I also think like, I think that's probably the example of his... what he's doing, like him, like he's got a lot. It's not surprising to me that he and Crumb had some sort of connection on Fritz the Cat, because they do a lot of the same, like, I'm going to mine the early 20th century for, sort of like rough iconography, some of which I'm going to be poking fun at and pulling apart, some of which I'm just going to be celebrating for its, I think they have a lot of the same influences in that regard. And so I think that's probably the movie where he plays with it most intentionally. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think 2 is plenty for him. I think he's just like, ultimately, I think he's got a really lazy sense of humor. And ultimately, as an animator, and it's like, he's a better animator than I am, I'll say this, but I'm still allowed to have, opinions and taste and stuff that I'm not a master of myself. I think he's sort of a sloppy and like, it sounds so mean, but like, I do think he's like a little bit lazy sometimes when it comes to animation. His characters just like move all over the place. They don't hit key poses, and this stuff isn't necessarily like, you don't have to do, I'm not Walt Disney, you don't have to do squash and stretch in your animation, but God, it does make you appreciate a guy like Walt Disney, something, or it's like, okay, those rules did exist for a reason. They do aid in storytelling. They do aid in like building an emotional connection with your characters. Like I found Michael in this movie, our lead, to be repulsive. Not just in the way he was designed or the way he behaved, but the way he moved. I just was like, God, I hate him. So 2, I think 2 is very fair.
I totally understand what you're saying. Yeah.
I appreciate it.
All of the Bakshi listeners of the show, though, are just going to be like, if you guys have Branson on again, we're going to be really upset. Especially when he says that Wicked City is like way better.
They're gonna, oh boy, I will say, if you do Bakshi again, you should get a Bakshi lover on. And I don't let me bring him on and dig him up to bury him again.
No, we also did him on one of our Patreon episodes. I think it was prior to you were bringing Cool World on, and we were like, well, shit, maybe we should do like just like an introduction to Bakshi episode, and we did like Fritz the Cat and Wizards, I think. And I was like, no, we were very open to Bakshi, and so far I gotta say, I think I've technically liked everything except for Cool World. I've just not found anything I've loved yet. I've not fully latched onto a Bakshi, but I do wonder if after Heavy Traffic and knowing a little bit more about him, maybe I'll get a little bit more out of him. I do want to check out Fire and Ice at some point too, because I did enjoy.
Oh yeah, I've never seen that.
That one just like still sells a lot. Like people really do like. I'm not sure if maybe it's just because it's so related to like the sort of like Conan, sort of like sword and sorcery stuff. Maybe people that like independently of Bakshi enjoy that, but that might be probably what I check out next, or maybe American Pop, since that seems to be the one that every one of my mutuals like actually thinks is an awesome movie.
Have you seen the Lord of the Rings that he did? Because I still
when I was a kid.
Oh,
when I was a kid,
I still haven't seen it. I'd be curious.
I remember liking it, but also when I was a kid, the Peter Jackson ones were coming out. So I was sorry, man.
I'm also used to that. So condensing that story to 2 hours is going to be like, what the fuck? So I don't know.
It is insane. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how they do that, but anyway.
I do want to address any Bakshi lovers listening to this who I maybe am inventing, who are just like fuming listening to this. I think it might be narcissism of small differences sometimes with me and him, where it's like we have so many similar tastes. There's so many things he's doing that I think are so cool on their face, and then when I watch it, it's just like, it's like an older beloved family member who you see one Christmas too many, and it's like, oh, that's what that was, the whole thing, it's just like, that's the direction you took it. And so maybe it's just a personal thing for me. I'm not trying to knock the crown off his head or anything.
Yeah.
No, you are being sufficiently generous to something you generally just don't enjoy.
And I do think,
yet find important enough to be worth discussing and talk about on a show.
And I don't think you can watch a Bakshi movie and just be like, oh yeah, no one's going to find this controversial.
Yeah, come on.
Everyone's going to be on board with this guy. So yeah.
Everyone's favorite grandpa.
It's like, I like the butthole surfers, and anytime I like someone's like, oh my god, the buttholes, it's like, yeah, that's the reaction I want. I want to knock the opera monocle out of the guy's head.
Hell yeah. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up, though, here for Heavy Traffic. You'll want to stick around because we are going to be right. Or maybe you won't. I don't know. We'll find out. We're going to be right back, and we're going to be talking about Wicked City.
Hope that his new partner is as good as she looks. Top agents from opposite worlds. They're the last defense against the anarchy of the black world.
For the life of me, I can't figure out why you're my partner.
What you mean is why your partner is a woman of the black world.
The twisted beings from the other side will do anything to stop them.
All right, we are back, and we are talking Wicked City, the 1987 cyberpunk crime horror anime, written and directed by Yoshiaki Kawajiri, co-written by Norio Osada, who was helping Kawajiri adapt a 1985 novel by one Hideyuki Kikuchi, and starring Yusaka Yara and Toshiko Fujita as two cops, one human, one demon, who are assigned to protect a human diplomat from a radical group of demons who are trying to assassinate him and put an end to some sort of peace treaty between the human world and, depending on which translation or dub you watched, the black world, the shadow world, the demon world, all kinds of different names for it. But this is our first time on this show talking about character designer, storyboard artist, and key animator turned writer-director Yoshiaki Kawajiri, who made his feature debut actually with this film after a decade of working on manga series and animated shows and movies, and who would, after this, go on to direct two pretty iconic anime films, including Ninja Scroll and the subsequent sort of TV show that he created after that, and also Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust, which Jamie and I actually just watched recently as the virtual screening for the $10 patrons last month, because we kind of we were intrigued and we kind of wanted to be a little bit knowledgeable for this episode. And I gotta say, we had a really good time with that movie and how well it merges. And I'm assuming a lot of it is also the source material, but I mean, the animation is absolutely fucking gorgeous, and how he translates the source materials merging of like pulpy spaghetti western, like gothic vampire horror, and like post-apocalyptic like sci-fi dark fantasy stuff in terms of like character design, environment design. It was like incredibly impressive. And so we knew going into this movie that even as a debut film, I mean, we were just, Branson was just talking about the fact that, you know, Bakshi's not someone who really thinks about like geography or blocking or actually even just like framing or like how to replicate a beautiful bit of lighting or like movement in the way, like a cinematic way. The opposite problem exists with this film, where it feels like that's the focus that sometimes you're just like, okay, but what actually is the story here, brother? Have we thought through some of these things that we're translating to the screen? And you're like, who cares? It's so beautiful.
I find a Vampire Hunter D especially has that. When we watched it, it's like a lot of it was less characterization and more just like
I just got lost
powers.
in it.
It was like people's powers were kind of their characterization. It's like as those evolved, that's how you learnt about them, rather than anything like their background or their family or anything like that.
He's got a really thin sense of characterization for the most part. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen Cyber City 080. 808. I highly recommend. It's a lot of fun. It's got the famous dub line, the get lost. You wouldn't recognize a goddamn vampire if one jumped out and bit you on the end of your fucking dick. But there's a character in that whose character is beautiful. Like, he's just like, he's a beautiful, it's like, that's all you really need or get with that guy. Just like, oh yeah, elegant, beautiful anime guy. That's the one who says that line. It's like, I don't know. I do think, it's sort of, it makes a case for itself.
Like when we were doing Vampire Hunter just the other week, or at least watching it, like that's what it feels like. It's like even the lead guy is more just stoic and confident and sure of himself, and you know he's going to defeat the vampire, however difficult that may be. It never feels like he's really up against it. There's kind of like just like this heroic strength to him all of the time, and it goes with all the other side characters too. They kind of have one thing and then they just hyper focus on that and then evolve it through the action rather than dialogue or relationships or things like that.
But it is mesmerizing as in terms of just like the visual imagination and the visual information and the detail, and like that is what, you know, really works for me, especially about this film. Like all the cyberpunk neo-noir sort of sense of style to it, the fluid way he will have his character run along like a really bleak like cityscape and then just throw in like a absolutely bizarre and hypersexualized like violent creature design that he will throw at you. And obviously some of this, I have to imagine, comes from source material, but unlike Vampire Hunter D, which had I think manga adaptations by the time he had actually done his version of it, because they did an anime film of it in 1985 and they had done a ton of stuff in between. I wasn't sure like where, like who, if he was the one doing the sketch artistry for this, or like if he was, you know, what he was realizing from the novels or whatever, because I just wasn't familiar with it. But it's really, really impressive to just like watch and look at, and especially when you pair it with something like Heavy Traffic, you are just like the level of just hyper competency on display and artistry in terms of like what this guy is doing purely as an animator will just fucking like blow your mind. And part of this is too, I wanted to highlight the art director of this, by the way, too. This is the other name that I saw that I was just like, oh, okay. Kazuo Oga, who did this film in 1987. In 1988, he was approached by Miyazaki to do a film called My Neighbor Totoro, which he was also the art director on. And then he would later again reunite with him to do Princess Mononoke. He would do Princess Kaguya as well. And there was just something so amusing to me while watching this movie, of thinking about Miyazaki watching just one of the most evil movies I've ever seen and being like, that is what Totoro fucking needs. It needs
I
this
found
guy.
my cat.
You need this energy. That really does go to show you just how absolutely gorgeous this movie is.
It really,
given
you're
what
right.
We're watching.
Comparing this to Bakshi, I feel so bad. I really did not think I was setting Bakshi up to fail a second time, but it really is like Hydrogen Bomb versus Coughing Baby. You know, like, this is so gorgeously done.
Yeah.
It's not fair.
Yeah, I think it's also what kind of sells it to you after a certain point, because this movie's pretty well known, if people know about it, for being very gratuitous in the sense of its the sex and rape that it shows.
Yeah.
And so when that does occur in the movie, you are obviously unsettled, and it's very disgusting and all of that. And especially the way they use it within the character, I think it will obviously be talking about. Yeah. But everything surrounding
if you thought
this,
three guys were in a room were uncomfortable talking about Ralph Bakshi, just wait until
those scenes pop up. Those three fucking scenes. Oh my God. But everything surrounding it is just so well thought out and gorgeous and stylized, and it's just like, I don't know, I can't help but be kind of mesmerized by this thing. Even as something as simple as them animating like them traveling in a car on a highway just like brings me such joy, and I just love it so much.
Yeah, I mean the first part of the movie where I went, okay, this is like incredibly impressive, and I know that this is what I'm gonna like about this movie, because it gets you the setup like pretty quickly, where it's like you're in a sort of futuristic cyberpunky Tokyo, lots of skyscrapers and offices, and you have this kind of working Joe kind of coded cop, undercover cop named Taki, who is I think he's undercover as like an electronics salesman or something, but really he's part of this black guard, and he's on the lookout for sort of dark demonic forces that exist beneath the surface of the sort of normal reality, including like, maybe you pick up a sexy woman at a bar, maybe it turns out she is a spider-like succubus doppelganger with a Venus flytrap for a vagina that is going to try to murder you, and it's just something you got to think about in this world. And so you kind of know immediately what you're in for, and they give you a little bit of exposition about the idea of like, there's two sides here. They generally sort of exist in a modern sort of political peace treaty. It's almost like, I saw some people compared to like Men in Black. It's kind of like the relationship between humans and aliens. I guess you could also say like Blade Runner is even maybe a little bit more accurate because of the sort of coded nature of like the civil rights component of it, I guess you could say, which you don't want to think about too much in the way that they call all of these characters monstrous demons and all that kind of stuff.
Well, luckily the movie also doesn't think about it that much, so you're in good
really
company if you don't. They
really, it's like there's like one representative of the demon world that is supposed to be good, and I mean the way that she's depicted a lot of the time is unfortunate, but she's
also good because she directly collaborates with the cops, though, which is a very funny, like the one, she's good because she betrays all of her radical friends is the idea.
Sure. Yeah.
Now that also she is extremely punished for doing so.
Oh yeah. Then it's wild, but I will say it's like they don't depict any nuance within the groups. It does feel as if it's just kind of like a good and evil thing. So you can kind of wipe away that part of your brain when you start watching it. You're like, okay, the demons aren't portrayed in any real nuanced way beyond
and
Maki.
The good guys want peace. They don't want to like exterminate these demons or anything
they want
like
the
that,
treaty.
right? Like that's sort of a difference too. Like in there's no moment in Blade Runner where he's like hunting these things down and goes, damn, these things actually kind of have more humanity than some of the people that I work for or anything. Like it doesn't really, it's not thinking on that way about this subject matter. It's just using it as like striking visualization between normal reality and this more surrealist dark reality that we are trying to not, kind of slip into, and that he's meant to be the guy sort of policing the boundaries of, as this agent who's assigned to cases like protection units regarding plots like these radicals maybe trying to assassinate a political figure who's trying to sign a peace treaty, or in this case that's exactly what he's tasked with doing, but also working alongside this beautiful demon from the other side named Agent Mackie. And the scene where I really knew that this was gonna be something like extravagant was that scene where they meet each other, and he goes to that airport sequence, and just the deep blue and red, like nighttime Tokyo noir sort of aesthetic of the animation, the image of the cityscape in the background, the airport in the background, the car lights, the men in suits, like their ties blowing in the wind, and like the crazy neon red haze when he starts actually doing the martial arts fight with the goons, and they start turning into the body horror eyeball tentacle monsters, and they're doing it almost in like that part at like the end of Heat. I don't know what part of the airport that actually is, where there's just these fucking random things sitting around while planes are like taking off and landing. But it's an awesome place to set like a neon lit martial arts fight between these characters.
Yeah, one of my favorite shots is when he pops, like they do that whole like noir thing that you were talking about, where it even shows him coming out of the fog, and he like kind of, I don't know, he's anticipating danger, and then the two guys come out of the fog. And then one of my favorite ones is when they're about to fight, they just have a giant plane start hurtling towards them coming into the clear.
Yeah.
And then they jump, and it's kind of exposed that, they have more exaggerated powers than we've seen other agents have at this time. And so it kind of sets the tone of what the fighting style is going to be. And the kind of just strange quality of these demons and their designs. Like one of them just has like a giant claw coming out of his torso. Like they don't even make a lot of sense. And it feels so alien in that way. And
I've seen people compare it to like Stuart Gordon or like The Thing or something.
There is literally a part where the guy's head pops off, and then he like crawls toward the guy with just his head and tentacles, like The Thing. So
it felt like that guy was going to be like, remember The Thing? That's what I'm from.
Totally. And I do also think that this is funny, just speaking on the character, the lead character here, Taki, where he has just that kind of like stoicism, that strength, that kind of he's like a natural hero. One of my favorite moments though is when he's got this mentality of like, I have to be more cautious and romantic about my encounters, because a lot of these demons use sex and manipulation as a way to get their victims. And when he goes to the room with the girl that turns into that like spider demon or whatever, it doesn't take him very long. He's like, no, I'm more of a romantic. And she just gets on her knees and starts giving him a blowjob. And then all of a sudden he's like, you know what? No, it's fine. We're gonna have sex. And it's like, this is his literally defense. I don't know if he's that strong-willed.
His
to be honest
noir
with you.
detective narration in that moment is literally like, wow, it feels like she has a completely different personality than she did like 30 seconds ago. I sure hope she's not like a demon in her body. That would be fucked up. Anyway, I'm gonna get my freak on before I actually address this.
Yeah, it's kind of hilarious, just because the implication would be that he's kind of has this strong will, or he's an agent that can resist this thing, and all it took was some head, and he was like, all right, demons, let's go.
Never mind.
I just thought that was funny. But
let me see the vagina with teeth trying to bite my dick off.
But that's the thing, then it turns into that, and it turns into like some of the craziest, creepiest sexualized imagery that I've ever seen, when it's not just gratuitous rape, but when it's like these kind of moments where it's almost like a transformation or a battle or something like that. I was like, this is sick. I love this kind of stuff.
All the stuff with the Spider Woman is awesome.
I think we can all agree. It's like, and a line should be drawn. It's like it's no surprise anyone who's even heard of this movie. Like there is rape in this movie, and it's awful. It's terrible. And it's also like juvenile in the way it's depicted too. It's not just like, it's not just like depicting something awful and being like, yeah, that's terrible. It's like, it's got a very cavalier sort of like attitude towards it, which is a big part of like what I think is like, is bad about that. But the Spider-Woman stuff is a different thing. That is not what that is. And that stuff is incredible. The Spider-Woman stuff that opens the movie is just, that hooked me immediately. I was like, God damn, what movie did I just like happen to pick on streaming? I just watched this a few weeks ago, just like stumbled upon it, you know? It was,
yeah. And it kind of gives you that, like, once you see that imagery and that transformation, you're like, well, what else am I in store for? Like, I just want to keep exploring this world, see what other demon powers are out there. You know, if it is really low on characterization, I just want to see style at this point. And it's full of that. So I really was like, I have a really good time with this movie and I enjoy it a lot. It's just when it hits those rape sequences, specifically two of them, and then really specifically one of them. I think that it's like what sucks about it is that the character, that's always going to be unbelievably disgusting and uncomfortable to watch, obviously, but they don't even really use her as a real character. She's almost always like in this damsel in distress kind of situation. And because what they're doing to her is so terrible, it feels as if you don't get a lot of her in any deep way, and that is what I think feels uglier about it. Obviously, it's ugly on its own, but that is what makes me feel like, oh, okay, now it feels completely gratuitous. Like we didn't even, think about it that much further, and that's like what sucks about it.
Like, I think there's a way to use storytelling elements like those in a way that could work, and in this case, it plays weirder following a series of scenes that seem to like kind of play it almost in like a silly fashion. Like I had kind of heard about it in advance, but the fact that like the actual mission itself is this like fairly silly, like they're protecting this like 19th century like mystic named like Giuseppe, and he's like this, this really eccentric and horny just like old man who feels like he would probably be like a Saturday morning cartoon archetype, except for the fact that he's like super handsy and perverted specifically towards the female demon agent, which gives it this very bizarre tone where you're just like, are we making light of this? Is this a joke? Is this funny? Like, I'm not totally sure that the way that he treats her, and the fact that every conversation about her or around her is basically like, dude, have you guys ever had sex with like a demon? Like, apparently it's like the craziest sex ever. Or or talking about how beautiful she is, or like one of the moments of like the hero having a personality in this film, like Taki, even, is that she is incredibly well researched on him. She saves his life in that opening airport sequence, and she relates that she's a hyper competent agent by showing all the research she's done in advance and prior to them meeting each other. And then the thing he gets hung up about is that she knows how tall he is and like how much he weighs and all these things. And so there's multiple times in the film where he goes, so how about giving like me your measurements?
Yeah.
And this is meant to be like I think the charming character building in terms of the writing. Like him. And that stuff plays so much worse when you treat this character like if you could set that up and have this character be a strong character who resists these sexist men around her, but the fact that she is just like completely thrown to the wolves, to the demon tentacles, whatever you want to say, throughout the majority of this movie, despite being introduced as this hyper competent agent, is the thing that, I think hurts about the movie when you're watching it.
This movie and Heavy Traffic, something I didn't expect, but now I'm thinking about it, that they did both have in common, was while I was watching them, I was going, what do you want from me? Out of, like, I know why you would make this, but me, the viewer, what's your goal for me? How am I supposed to be involved in this here? Am I supposed to think this is cool? Am I supposed to think this is funny, what's happening?
Mm-hmm. Oh. Yeah, it's...
Sorry, everyone who can currently hear my cat sneeze.
Oh. That was a sneeze? I thought she was like smacking something. That's so funny. I totally get what you're saying. It's strange, too, because she is still depicted as incredibly powerful, like even sometimes more powerful than Taki, and maybe even every other person in the movie. But it's like, because she gets into this, it's almost like the first time it happens is with an ex of hers, where she used to like be with him because he was a demon, and now he feels betrayed, and so he comes on to her, and she uses it more in the first moment like as a manipulative thing. Like she gets him into a position, and then she grabs him with her like hair powers, and then Taki comes in and shoots him in the chest.
This is the radical dude with the sunglasses who like parkours his way into the hotel, right? Where they're keeping they're trying to protect the old guy in the hotel.
Yeah.
And some of the mythology and like world building is very funny, but like they go to a very high up room in a hotel because they go the demon spirits like they can only go to like the 20th floor.
Well, they're afraid of heights.
Yeah, they have
these
like barriers I think that they do eventually too, where it's like a way of defending themselves and everything. But yeah, so it feels like those scenes where she is assaulted, I wouldn't describe them as like silly. Like I know what you meant by when you were saying it with I've thought of the Dragon Ball Z uncle kind of in a sense where he's like horny for the young girl. And this guy is
I wasn't saying those scenes were silly. I was saying that the silliness in like the build up to it and how they treat the sexism as silly.
Yeah.
And then they go, no, but then we're actually going to do the graphic noxious stuff as well. And you kind of go, I don't know if you're like if that's actually a critique that you're making or if you just are, if the writing is just actually like written by a misogynistic freak.
You know how it zooms out and then Bugs Bunny was animating the whole thing. It's like you zoom out of this movie and then Master Roshi was animating the whole thing. It's like it's perverts all the way up.
It makes sense. I think I get what you're saying then. Yeah, it's kind of like it presents itself as some of this sexual humor, even if it's kind of like misogynist is funny, and then when they go into the actual gratuitous rape stuff, then you're like, well, now my brain feels a little unbalanced, like I'm not sure exactly what you're going for here. And that being said, like even the implications, if it was more implied, it's not like it would be any less disgusting. It's just it feels,
it's still just bad writing for this character. I think that's what I get really hung up on.
For sure. I think it's the writing for the most part. I agree. I don't think that you can never do this type of thing in a movie to have some type of character motivation or trauma or anything. It's just the way you do it. But it's also the way that they shoot it, because at a certain point it does feel as if you're like, it's also supposed to be kind of sexy. And just because they have these shots that are like the curved arc of her back while it's happening and stuff like that. And I'm like, I don't know. I think the shadow implication was enough. You don't need all the extra shots to make it seem like it's porn rather than something that's awful is happening on screen. And I think like that's part of it too, even beside the fact that they're not using her character very well. So those are all the obvious things I don't like about the movie.
We were talking about like Bakshi popping single tits out. This one loves the shot of like demon hands just like fondling a breast.
Yeah.
It probably does like 50 different shots of that happening.
And some of the stuff though I do like when it gets into that sexual violence stuff is like when they have the uncle, or I'm calling him uncle now because of Roshi or whatever, but the mystic, he's kind of like at a certain point he goes to one of those, massage parlors where they get naked and like rub their bodies on you with soap and everything.
Yeah, and he's like seduced by like the shape-shifting demon who's like a soap massage person or whatever. And literally starts absorbing his like life force into her body, like he's like melting his face into her breasts.
Yeah, and then his whole body gets consumed by her, and it's almost like she's like pregnant with this little old man. And there is something like when they're doing that kind of stuff, I think it's even like kind of funny in this really disgusting way because of how perverted he is as a character, and they're using it against him. So when it was moments like that, it worked for me, even if it is gross. And I don't know, the gratuitous nudity that's in these kinds of films, it doesn't really bother me. I mean, it's maybe I'm just a dude, I don't know, but it's like it depends on how they're using it, of course. Like it's uncomfortable when they're using it with Maki. Like that's very uncomfortable. But
inside every guy there is a former 14-year-old boy in there.
That's what I mean. And when you're watching stuff like Wicked City, or what was the other one we watched, even I mean, we were just talking about it, I guess, Vampire Hunter D, like even those that movie has that kind of like your 13-year-old juvenile self wakes up because there's just a hot lady and vampires killing each other, you know what I mean?
It's the part of the brain that goes
like
Yeah, dude, it would be so sick to fall in love with like a vampire lady while I'm like a cowboy vampire hunter. That'd be so awesome.
It'd be so sick. Exactly.
You're in the back of your mom's car listening to a song, imagining what that would be like. Oh yeah.
Yes, dude.
And you don't
dude, you have like Avenged Sevenfold on, and you're just like, this is what the soundtrack to like the movie version would be too, I bet.
Backcountry on and Vampire Hunter D, baby. Exactly. And I think that's it, because these movies are almost built like they don't think much past that anyway. So I think you're like almost forced to, if you're going to enjoy this kind of thing, unlock that juvenile self of yours again and just stop thinking so hard, because it's not going to let you do that.
Well, I think also that's part of why the rape in the movie is so nasty, because it like jolts you out of that part, like that that mode of enjoying the movie. It's just
totally.
Like, Jesus, dude, don't do this. Do the fun stuff. Do the stuff where he's in the bath, or the Spider Woman, or the nails are like that stuff's a blast and so weird. This is just nasty and ugly, and I did take
evil.
this movie, so I sort of owe you guys an apology for that, but it is a little evil.
It is strange too.
It's fine. It got me to text a friend of the show, Meg Shields, because she gives this movie a positive rating. I literally texted her today. And I was like, so Wicked City, Meg, as one of the few Sleazoids female correspondents, explain the positive rating here.
And you know what? Shout out Lucinda does as well. We had her on the show, so
we have collected all of our favorite critics who like stuff like this.
I'm a voice. I'm speaking for the women in your audience when I bring you Wicked City.
Exactly.
That's right.
And Meg said I had permission to read this text that she sent, and
Beautiful.
She said I needed to cite her for permission for this, but she said, just relieved everyone involved is either an alien or an adult, honestly.
It's for real. Yeah.
Hey, that's a win for sure. That's a W.
She had no further excuse than that. And I was like, you know what? Fair enough. Her review too was also, I'm going to be a little bit more sexually cautious from now on.
Oh, it's so funny. There is this mixed bag in this movie too, where it's like all of the most powerful powers that you see come from women, and then but at the same time they're constantly being like brutally killed or raped or whatever. So it has this like this strange balance where it becomes like they are super powerful, but there's almost like this implied fear that is within it a little bit.
Oh yeah, it's not implied. I mean that Spider Woman,
sure.
As much as she's awesome, she is absolutely like, oh yeah, women are demons.
Yeah, and they're the most powerful demons apparently. Yeah, like they even have a piece of dialogue where I think it says like the women demons are stronger than the men, and it's like, I guess also, but unfortunately that's also maybe a reason that they use to like they have to take them out. So it's, you know, again, mixed bag.
I mean, that's such an anime thing too, where it's like,
it is.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've created an airtight piece of logic for myself to get to do this thing now. It's like, well, if they are that much more powerful, it's like, okay, well, you just made up that line where they're that much more powerful.
You wrote this. Yeah.
You didn't find this in nature.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so that's the stuff that's mostly a bummer, like in the middle section. Like I really do think it like really hits you around the time that they're like driving, you know, they sort of eliminate the demon succubus who was trying to melt the old man into her body and suck his life force out. They end up having to take him unconscious sort of to a hospital. They're pursued by some more demons on the way, and Mackie eventually, given like a solid character moment, I think, is like asked to sort of sacrifice herself in order to sort of complete the mission, even though it is depicted as a giant sort of tentacle tongue very uncomfortably licking her body and then like orally penetrating her in a very vivid
suggestive way.
Image.
Yeah.
Yes, before sort of kidnapping her to the demon sort of radical base. So
still
it is
one
a
of
moment
the
where
subtler
you kind of,
moments in the movie.
Absolutely one of the more subtler moments, because I thought, oh, okay. I had heard about this movie. I was like, that was grotesque, but like that wasn't, as bad. And then I was like, wait a second.
There was like an evolving thing that kept happening where every scene where that was clearly about to happen, I was like, oh shit, this is going to be the scene. And then the first one happened. I'm like, okay, not good, but that was, okay. We've watched worse and
it's
talked
over.
about worse.
We're done.
Yeah. And then the second one happened with the tentacle oral thing, and I was like, yeah, that was a little bit more gratuitous. And then the third one happens, and that was where I went.
And the third one is absolutely the worst
I don't
one,
think
where
we
she
needed
is
the extra shots here, guys.
She is just being gang raped by demons in like the shadow realm or whatever it is, and it's shown
and it's purposely ugly, like they're in an abandoned like warehouse, and it's all concrete, and it's on purposely disgusting. And whereas and
they
again,
extend it and linger on it, and they do try to write an excuse in for themselves, which is that the bad guy is he's showing him images to just try to trick and lure him away from his post, is kind of the argument the writing tries to make for it. But then it turns out none of it is like just like I was like, oh, maybe it's a hallucination. This is this bad guy conjuring grotesque images, and I'm like, no, they're actually doing it. I was like, okay, well, that's less cool. I mean, it wasn't cool in the first place, but it's even like less excusable, I guess, is the terminology I would use.
And I think that one is I think the grossest one to me, because there isn't a lot of like, he's not trying to exaggerate the style or make anything kind of alien like when the tentacle part happens in that second scene with the assault, there's still this like one shot that, aside from the assault that's happening, looks really cool and kind of like darkly beautiful, where it has like a center framing, and the tentacle monster is like holding her almost. And there's something about that I was like, okay, that's still like cool and kind of gorgeous in this dark way. But this scene, it feels like really disgusting porn at a certain point. And it's not super long, but it's just enough of these shots that it's too much. I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah, they linger on it just long enough, and also have the old guy basically be like, she deserves to be raped and tortured by her kind because she's like an alien demon bitch or something like that, is how he describes her.
It makes you feel gross. Trust that guy. It's not like we're not led to believe that everything that guy says is good or cool. But that,
or there's
that
a
moment,
reason behind it.
Yeah, that moment was still like, geez, even if he's an unreliable narrator, don't have him say that.
It's just such a low bar for the hero character as well, because it's basically like, look, he values that demon lady as much as any human, and thinks that she doesn't deserve to be raped, and like that is like the heroic moment of him being like, I'm gonna go and get her, and like actually going to the base, and you getting the extended sequence of what is actually taking place before he gets set up to be sort of seduced by like a sexy demon who has like a Videodrome vagina opening in her abdomen. Again, kind of cool.
That's kind of cool. Yeah, that's where it's awesome.
Tries to seduce him only for him to sort of resist and like fucking like blow a pistol that like shoots a laser out of it and goes like right through her. It's kind of crazy.
And even then some of that stuff with like using the pistols, like that's cool. Like this movie's tragic flaw is how stupid it is. You know what I mean?
Because it's not trying to say a lot. That's, I think, the thing. It's just kind of like good versus evil. And because of that simplicity with the other stuff that happens, it feels like it lacks nuance, and therefore it's just gross at certain times. But then you get the moments where it's just purely like one of the most gorgeous animes I've ever seen. So I'm also like, and with it still great sequencing and action and style and all of that. It's just like these three moments where I'm like, oh my god, it sucks that I gotta watch this.
I lost it when he punched that one goon in the head and like punched through his face so that his eyeballs popped out of his head. I was like, that's awesome.
So it's like, and that's the thing, it's still
beautifully
no excuse.
done.
Yeah, and it's still no excuse for those scenes prior, but it's at least you get to see these guys just get absolutely murked, like in the most exaggerated, detailed, violent way possible. So that's fun.
Yeah, I mean, look, I do think Kawajiri sort of like assumes you are like too stupid to function. You know what I mean? Like
13.
I'm like, maybe, I don't know. Like, I don't think he's talked to a 13-year-old recently. Like they're sharper than the target audience of the, like, I think sometimes, like, for example, like the big twist at the end with, what's his name, with Giuseppe, is like so nonsensical. I'm like, okay, well that's beautiful. That's like such a fuck you to the audience of like, I was actually behind the.
That's why I mean, I think a lot of my issues are with like the writing of like what this story is. I think he's actually doing an incredible job of viscerally rendering this. So that it feels like it has so much imagination and power and weight to it. And then every once in a while they stop and you're less focused on like a set piece sequence where you're like, that was one of the most gorgeous things I've ever seen. And you actually have to hear these characters speak to each other, and you're kind of like, oh, like that's okay. I guess that's
some of that I liked. And I actually think if you were to cut like 6 minutes from this movie, you'd have a movie that we wouldn't be like, you know, like letting the listeners know, like, hey, we don't condemn that stuff. You know, we could just be talking about like, hey, it's just a batshit, like balls to the walls, like just like crazy movie. Because like I sort of loved that twist at the end, because I was like, yeah, no, this movie doesn't expect you to watch it a second time. You know, this movie is just like, yeah, no, that's the twist. Don't think about it too hard. You know, just like you're watching this to watch it, not to think about it.
The twist was definitely amusing. The stuff I was thinking about was like the scene after he becomes the prince saving the princess, and you know all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And there's the bit where he goes, you know, he basically wonders like what it is that was happening here, because like this lightning like came and hit the bad guy and helped him out, and then she's kind of using her powers to sort of heal him after he saves her, and then he's, you know, sort of they're exchanging sort of exposition about her time with the radicals and him wondering why any of this is sort of happening, and he literally out loud goes, or maybe it's narration, I couldn't actually tell, but he goes, what is the conspiracy here that everyone is talking about? Why did they ask me if I slept with Maki? Is there a conspiracy about this treaty that's being signed tomorrow? And I went, dude, this is like the noir detective reading the log line to his movie. Like it was like such a strange bit of writing that I was just like, I don't really know what we're but whereas when it just goes into the actual sequences, and like even the idea of these two characters developing like a romantic feelings for each other on the job, and the idea of playing like that romantic like pop ballad while they're driving around, which I actually thought was kind of sick, and then the Spider-Woman demon webbing them in the tunnel and starting the giant set piece where she's actually like shooting webbing out of her Venus flytrap and
love it,
you know, impaling them with her spike cans and trying to slice them up and all this stuff. Like that whole sequence I think is like absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. No, I was gonna, because you were just mentioning the dialogue. I don't watch a lot of anime, but I've seen, I don't know, a few things, and I feel like this is a trope in anime, which is that narration that kind of just spells things out for you. Like I remember that being in Death Note, if you guys have ever seen that.
Oh yeah,
it's like literally every piece of dialogue is just their inner monologue going like, well, I have to do this because he might do this, and if this happens then I must do this. And I'm just kind of like, I just don't know if it's an anime thing or if it's just specific ones that I've seen. But I
mean, Death Note in particular, if you remove the inner monologues, Death Note is like 7 minutes long, you know?
yeah, totally. Totally. So I feel like that's been, even in Dragon Ball Z, right? Like they'll be battling each other and they'll be like, well, my power level is this and therefore you can't do this. And they kind of set up their rules as they're going. And I yeah, that's true. And I don't necessarily love it. Sometimes it really does bother me when I watch it. It just depends on the show or movie, I suppose. With this, obviously it's very laughable, but I guess everything else is so simplistic that I didn't mind that the character was just kind of like, oh, I have to, this is suspicious, I have to look into this, you know what I mean? But I totally get what you're saying.
I wonder if a plot twist is coming soon, and there is maybe the detective is going to be like, maybe 2 cases or actually 1 case.
Yeah
that would be weird.
That would be crazy.
I hope anyone watching my story will stay tuned.
Yeah, that's kind of what it feels like. Oh man, it's like dragging you along a little bit.
It is. I mean, it is like a genre convention. I mean, genre anime is not a genre; it's a medium. But you know what I mean. Like it. Still, there is a lot of something that happens in a lot of anime that occurs for sure. It's like. Yeah, in the case of, I guess I'm just reiterating what you guys were saying, but like in the case of this movie, the characterization is so thin that it's like, well, I don't feel betrayed when he talks like that. It's not like, oh, you were smart a second ago.
Yeah, it's like kind of like it's been treating you like fucking stupid the whole time. So by the time you hit the 30-minute mark, you're like, all right, I guess I'm stupid. Let's just be stupid for the next 80 minutes.
I mean, like the opening scene with the Spider-Woman, I watched that and I was like, this movie's going to have to work hard to lose me. And then watching the movie, I was like, okay,
Totally.
It's putting in some hours. Like they're actually trying.
It's trying.
Yeah, they're trying to shake me loose.
That was captivating. Let me tell you.
That's such a great way of describing what the experience of this was watching, because you're like, everything about this is awesome, and every few minutes it's like, yeah, but what if there was a part that wasn't awesome? And you're like, no,
Like, stop.
don't do it.
Stop doing that.
It's like the movie feels like driving a stolen car that's like the nicest car you've ever driven, and it has a security feature that once every like 11 minutes it'll try to crash.
And you just gotta try to sustain and keep on the ride. Still kind of enjoy yourself if you can.
Like, all right, all right.
That's so funny.
There's still a thrill to it for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Holy hell.
But it does build to a big old set piece where, which I will say, something that's telling about this movie is that the shortest sex scene in the entire movie is the only consensual like lovemaking. Which is after the car crash with the sort of demon Spider Woman. They end up getting saved by this unseen force. We end up finding out that it is the sort of eccentric old man Giuseppe, who is actually not a sort of diplomat they're trying to protect. He's actually trying to protect them, and they actually have sought both of these agents out. They have put them into this position, and in a, I guess you could say, kind of a smart way, they've said both of you are genre archetypes who are gonna fall in love, almost like the two leads of like the X-Files. We're gonna put we're gonna smash you guys together like action figures until you make a baby that's gonna save the world, and it's gonna be half human, half demon or whatever. Like that's ultimately what is sort of revealed to these two characters in this sort of like, you know, in the final set piece of them being sort of attacked at this church by the sort of shadow demon sort of antagonist of the movie. They're still naked and sort of post-coital. And Giuseppe reveals all of them to these, like, I've been the lightning powered thing protecting you this entire time and guarding you and manipulating both of you to fall in love so that, you know, you guys will, you know, the cool cop will impregnate this sexy demon.
Even when I was in mortal danger that you were protecting me from, and when I was unconscious, trapped in a bubble woman.
And I swear I was only acting as a sexual deviant. That's not me for sure.
I hated every minute of it.
It is also like that because I don't think they tell you, and maybe I missed it, but I don't think they tell you right away that she's been impregnated, and that's partly why her like powers have been rejuvenated. So before that is explained, it almost feels like it implies that he had sex with her, and it was just the sex was so good that she's like more powerful than she's ever been in her entire life, which I just found kind of funny.
And it's so funny to even give her moment of strength and say that it only happened because the hero impregnated her. Is so great.
You know what's funny is
a bummer.
The thing you were thinking beforehand, I think, is a slightly more progressive end for the movie, you know, or it's like,
it's like she finally like had good sex and now she's super powerful and ready to go. Yeah, totally.
I think that's probably a better message.
Yeah.
Well, neither are great, but if we've got to pick between the two, I think I'll take that one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, she literally gets mutant superpowers from being a mother at this point. And so the three of them are basically just able to sort of like fight off this demon in a fairly, you know, impressive little action sequence where like there's like a church statue that has tentacles flying out of it, and they're, you know, at one point his shadow is being used as a weapon in a really cool way where he's like using it to try to like, you know, almost like his shadow is like a sword or something, but then you can actually like fall into it in a void and stuff like that. There's some cool like really visual moments like that.
Yeah, all the like kind of innovative powers are really cool. And I mean, honestly, even because of the simplicity of this movie and its thinking and its logic and everything, it didn't even really bother me by the end that, you know, the reason she was powerful was because she was pregnant, just because I think overall it's just trying to say like these two worlds are going to be unified and that's a good thing, which in this logic and this world, it is a good thing. So I was like, okay, that's fine. Nothing else has nuance. So why should I get mad about this at this point if I'm going to enjoy myself
it's like a lot of the, and I'm glad we've been talking like this because like the stuff matters and is real, but some of it,
still matters,
it's like it's like reviewing like a Cannibal Corpse album cover,
right?
And be like, now I don't endorse what they're doing to those bodies.
Yeah, it's like obviously,
of course not.
Yeah, that's the thing. Sometimes that, like, I mean, in this case, again, I have more problems with it, but something like Cannibal Corpse, you know, if it's just so ridiculous and over the top for the sake of it, I can even forgive that sometimes. It's just a matter of, like, I think it's because they try to make her also like the hero in this and almost try to imply that they're giving her character when they're not giving her too much. And that's where it gets a little shakier. And also some of the shots are just not necessary.
Sure.
But yeah, the overall, this ending didn't bother me as much because it's as simple as the two worlds are united, and it's hopefully going to bring peace to our demon and human lives. And there we go. Yeah. Everyone's going to be
Kawajiri just believes in interracial love, peace wins.
Yes,
you know,
exactly.
That's ultimately it. I mean, and also, we're gonna absolutely fucking annihilate all the spider women succubi.
Damn straight, boy. Take them out.
Also, my optimistic read of this was like the spider women in this world. Now it's like, okay, well, now that we're united,
maybe
the spider women are good now.
Yeah,
now we can just have babies with the spider women, and everyone's gonna be chill with it.
You know, what I mean?
Yeah, that seems like a great situation for everyone. The spider women seem to love having sex. Like, this is all good.
It's true.
Yeah, there won't be anything political. You know, politics won't have to get in the way of great sex.
Exactly.
Is ultimately
yes. Wicked City.
What this was the idea that this ends on.
Now, are you guys familiar with? I wasn't when I watched this. I have since become familiar with. This movie was carried by Hollywood Video in the 90s.
I did not know that.
You guys had Hollywood Video up north, right?
Up in Canada? I'm not sure. It probably would have been. Yeah, Blockbuster. It would have been called Blockbuster.
Yeah.
Okay. We had Blockbuster and Hollywood Video. It was sort of a like.
Wow. The riches.
I don't mean to brag
of America.
About how good things are in America. But we used to have 2 video rental stores. But Hollywood Video, I believe, carried Wicked City just in like animation. And so there's like a lot of people about my age who are just like, yeah, man, I was like 7 years old and I thought Wicked City looks interesting, and we popped it on, and my life changed forever.
It was right next to a Disney movie.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's awesome. I can't imagine if I watched this as like a young teen or like 12 years old or something. I think it would have just blown my fucking mind.
It's all I could think watching it was like, God, I wish I had been 16.
Yeah.
Because that's like the sort of ideal viewing experience.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's definitely when you're at you'll be thinking about it at the least critically and just being like, whoa,
this is sick.
That shit's crazy. Yeah. What?
Boobs, blood, violence, let's go.
This shit's insane. The fingernails, that's crazy.
Yeah, like, because I think there's 2 reviews of this movie that will wrestle inside you, and it's one, okay, well, this is evil anime porn Blade Runner, in brackets, complimentary.
Right, yeah, exactly.
And then the other part of you is it's evil anime porn Blade Runner, like derogatory.
Yeah, I think this is definitely kind of a 50-50 thing. I don't think anyone's going to be like, well, I guess, I don't know. It's hard to say. Like, I was going to say no one's going to be lukewarm on this, but are we? In a way, like
I kind of am.
I guess
unfortunately,
I am. Like, I feel like, I have a complicated feeling with it where I really like it, and then there's those 2 scenes, and I'm just kind of like, okay, that's obviously pretty bad, and it doesn't really help the character, and there's nothing to it other than just like gratuitous sexual assault, and obviously I think that shouldn't be in there, but it's like I feel like if I watch this movie and I just cut out those specific shots that I think are just trying to be more pornographic than anything, I think I'd fucking like love this movie. So it's really, because I don't mind the juvenile shit. If a movie wants to be just completely simplistic and that kind of dumb, I don't care. I can get on board with that as long as you set it up in the beginning of the film. But it's just those parts where I go like, that doesn't serve her character well, and she could have been so much more, and that's where it really turns me off. But everything else, I still fucking
think the
like
character
a lot.
would be kind of written that way, even if they didn't like film it the way that they filmed it. Like it's kind of flawed on like both sides.
Maybe
but I do think you're right that you would.
Much, you know what I mean?
That's what I think it is.
Yeah.
I think you would care. You would write it off all as like a juvenile fantasy if it didn't upset the juvenile fantasy and just make you upset actually for parts of it.
Saying like lukewarm on this is such a like I don't think in this case I would use that term, because it's like if you had like a cup of boiling water and you added 3 ice cubes to it, you don't get lukewarm water. You're just drinking tea like a lunatic,
This is too spicy to be lukewarm. Yeah, no, totally. I think that's kind of what I was getting at. Yeah, but it's like, even though I feel like, I mean, I don't know if we're going to the reductive rating round, but I feel like I'm going into this like with a 3-star, but it's honestly still kind of strong for me.
That's where I am too.
And I'm like, I wish it's one of those movies that I want to like more. I really do, because there's so much about it that I'm like, this is fucking awesome. And it's just as simple as it like gets me stoked and it's rad. Like it's that stupid, right? But it's just, I could put this on and minus those couple moments, I'm just like, I'm 13 again, and I think this is the coolest thing ever. So yeah.
Yeah, because the way that I kind of balanced that these two things ended up, I kind of liked, I had a hard time being like justifying hitting the like button on this movie in the way that I did like the Ralph Bakshi movie. But what I would argue is that like Bakshi, I think, starts in like kind of a mode that I maybe don't necessarily have a taste for, and the eccentricities and the personal elements, he kind of worked it way up to a bit of a higher rating for me. This one is hindered. This one starts in a place where I'm like, this is the sickest fucking shit ever, and then it kind of works its way back down to like more of like a 3 for me. But that was really
feeling where I was like watching, because I knew every review when you go on Letterboxd is like rape. So I knew it was coming, but so when it like I was so on board, and then when it happens, it's just that feeling of like, oh my God, like, come on. I want to move past this.
Yeah. And I understand someone watching something like this and being like, it's hard to really fully enjoy all the lovingly rendered, like cyberpunk neo-noir detail and imagination and the fluidness of it all. And because it is undeniable. Like this guy is an incredibly skilled animator. He had been doing it for a decade before he got to make his debut, and only even got better. Like I highly recommend everyone go check out Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust after this at some point, because it is just like, that seems to be like kind of like the peak of what he was able to do, just like technically. Like it's incredible. And if you like all the eccentric, the sort of like thin pulpy writing, but with like really, really richly designed environments and characters and animation, like that is like, you don't get the noxious stuff that annoys you or feels like it upsets that.
Yeah.
But there is something to be said every once in a while about someone coming on this show and being like, no, I want these guys to talk about something that has like actual evil vibes to it for a little bit, and gets their show put on some sort of government watch list. So I'm not going to say that I had like, I'm glad I watched this.
We're on that list already. Let's be honest. We've
been on
that list since Midori.
I was like, we talked about Midori. We're fine.
We've been on that list since 2019.
What was Mermaid in a Manhole?
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's like every once a year we go complete sicko mode.
Yeah, you're keeping your government watcher employed. Just like everyone.
Exactly.
Okay,
you're welcome, by the way, to whoever's listening.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So that's just it. I was really impressed by just like the colors and the textures and the design work, and there's a lot of fun to be had, especially on display when this just is like a human and a demon cop. Both are incredibly attractive and punching bad guys so hard their eyes pop out of their head, or getting into fights with like body horror creatures in front of a Tokyo cityscape, and a giant spider like succubus shooting webbing again out of a Venus fly flytrap vagina in a car chase.
Awesome.
Like it's awesome.
Just that sentence is awesome right there.
There's moments in this film and style in this film that is objectively awesome, and it only ever harms itself that it is, it just treats its, sexy demon cop lady so poorly in terms of like how it writes her as a character and how it tries to make her hyper competent and powerful, and then just seems to completely punish her and you as a viewer in multiple instances. But I do think if you're a viewer who can generously try to just compartmentalize that aspect of it and enjoy some of the artistry on display here, there is a lot of it, and it is very impressive. So it definitely still got to like low 3 territory for me.
Nice. Yeah, I think I've pretty much said what I've said. Honestly, I think it's even a strong 3. And if I'm on a list, if I'm on 2 lists now, sorry. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yep. I think that beyond those scenes that I just are completely uncomfortable with, I really, really enjoy this. So, yeah.
You know what, Branson, next time you're on, you should join us for a Hisayasu Sato conversation. We should talk about Lolita vibrator torture.
Yeah, it's fine. It's about time we talked about that.
Yeah.
We talk about that off air all the time.
That might be more of like a Will Sloan episode. Maybe we'll do a joint episode with everybody.
Every guest you've ever
party.
had. What do you think?
Yeah. Just a 50 guest episode for Lolita vibrator torture. Oh my god.
Yeah, but do we have a rating from you, Branson? Does this get one?
Yeah, no, it gets a rating. I'm so I've tried to wean myself off of star ratings in general, and this one in particular is like, God, where do you even aim a star at this one? I did give it a heart. I guess I would say a heart with an asterisk is like about what I would rate the, or I don't know, 3.5 stars, a heart with an asterisk. Like, yeah, this is, I would, you
had a very funny review by the. Can I mention that to people?
Oh, please! I don't remember what I said.
You ended your review for it. You watched it over the Christmas break, and you literally said that you recommended anybody who was reading your review should just throw that movie on while they're home for the holidays. So you were like, call mom into the living room and show her, and if she tries to leave, threaten to hurt yourself.
No memory of saying that.
That's so funny, man.
And it was just such a vivid portrait of a specific kind of guy who definitely exists.
Yeah, and will listen to that advice.
Yeah. Oh man, that's incredible.
I don't know. I guess my review or my rating would be like, read a few. Don't go in raw to this one. Like,
yeah,
read a few.
Know what you're getting into.
And if you know what you're getting into, you know what you're getting into, and you'll have.
That's how I felt about it. I knew what I was getting into.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, and I think you can compartmentalize and you can have a nice time. And if you can't do that, I completely understand. That's
yeah.
There's other movies that look and feel like this that you can just watch.
Yeah, just don't throw it on. Just watch Akira again. It's fine.
Yeah, this isn't one of those movies that if someone says they don't like, I'm just like, you're weak. You know what I mean?
No, I'd be like, you vote. You have like,
yeah, you probably have a better mindset than I do.
Yeah. I bet you have kids.
You're well adjusted.
Yeah.
You're not listening to the Sleazoids podcast. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
You were raised properly.
Yeah. Honestly, anyone who's coming to me like, should I watch Wicked City? First of all, it's a psychotic question, but like, it was like, Branson, should I watch Wicked City? It's like, if you're asking me, the answer is yes. Like,
yeah,
you would ask a normal person if you weren't going to watch it,
They'd say, what's Wicked City?
Yeah.
A normal person.
I hope Branson runs for something at some point so that someone can dig up his log of this and be like, did anybody know that?
I'm going to lock down the sickos vote, though, and run away with it.
He endorsed every scene in Wicked City. We know this.
I'm going to edit this film. I'm going to edit this podcast, so that's how he sounds.
That's great. So, but yeah, no. Enjoyable movies from Branson Reese. Thank you so much. Which, by the way, I forgot to mention too. There's apparently a '90s live-action remake of Wicked City.
Oh, I want to watch
by Troy Hark,
which is great. By the way, I've heard. Like, I haven't seen it, but I've heard it's awesome. People like it more than this. So Maybe there's less rape in it. Maybe.
Apparently, there's like a crazy like body horror sex with like a pinball like guy or something. So maybe that would connect. That would connect Wicked City and Heavy Traffic together with pinball machine action. You know,
triple feature.
Yeah, Branson was thinking through this one, but. Yeah, that is going to wrap it up for this week's episode. That was Heavy Traffic from 1973, Wicked City from 1987. That is the end of our evil pervert animation double feature. Thank you so much, Branson.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Bringing this with you. It was our pleasure, honestly. But before you go, again, I know you got the show. You got to promote the show. But is there anything else? As well? Anywhere website people can check out your work and whatnot?
You can go to swanboy.com and read my webcomic Swanboy. It's there. You just check out Rude Tales of Magic. It's chugging along. It's going great. I'm really. We just wrapped up a really awesome arc. We got another really great one that we just started. A great podcast. And check out Strip Law on Netflix. If I said anything on this podcast, by the way, that you're like, this guy's a freak, I don't speak for Netflix. I am not like, I don't speak for Colin. I am acting as an independent agent when I say that.
They were like, look, Strip Law, it can't get a season 2 because someone who worked on it said nice things about the movie Wicked City.
With a huge asterisk.
Huge asterisk.
But that's definitely go and check all that stuff out. I can't wait to watch this show, but we're going to be back in 1 week's time for our listeners, where we are going to be doing a double feature of movies that you guys have almost voted for a number of times, but it keeps getting like third or fourth place in our poll and never winning, and we felt it was time to finally just do it. We're going to be talking about Alex Cox's Walker.
Oh, hell yeah.
The sort of like Western with Ed Harris that kind of ended his career. And we're going to be also talking about Tribulation 99, which from what I understand is the sort of paranormal sort of like pseudo documentary sort of visual collage piece that also has to do with sort of American intervention in the global South. And both of these movies, from what I understand, also ended both their filmmakers' careers.
Love that.
Nice.
So I'm very curious to talk about that over on the Patreon. And then in 2 weeks' time, pairing with Branson's episode, it is the annual Perry Rulland episode, which is always a fun episode because he always shows us some of the most extreme Japanese content that we've ever watched.
Is he who brought on Midori?
He's who brought on Midori.
There it is. Look at that connection.
This is going to be nothing compared to that.
And we're going back to back. But he has brought on X the Movie, which I am unfamiliar with, but I guess that is also another sort of Japanese animated film that we're going to be talking about. And the pairing is James O'Barr's The Crow, which I think is a version of like The Crow, like the Alex Proyas film with Brandon Lee, but like it's a version of the graphic novel that was done by like a no budget guy on like a VHS camcorder or something.
Awesome.
And I don't know if it's like meant to be like more accurate or like what, but every Perry's episode is he shows us a movie with like under 100 logs and goes, I swear. And we go, okay. So that is what we're going to be doing in 2 weeks' time to keep this exploration into all of the sleazy movies going. But once again, thanks to Branson and thanks to all the listeners out there, and keep it sleazy.
Keep it sleazy, everybody.
Keep it sleazy.